Our own Tracy met farmer Ray Kimball, who says that his horse, Franklin, has the ability to speak full sentences.
When did you first realize he could talk?
Well, I'd hear him saying things when I was sleeping, and then I'd go out to the barn and we'd have some real conversations.
Can we talk to Franklin?
He can't wait to meet you. Say hi, Franklin. What's that? That's a good one.
What did he say?
He said, "Who's the pretty lady?"
Aw. Franklin, do you like living on the farm?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Did he say something?
Tracy, you live here now.
I spent a cozy night at Ray's farmhouse in a room he called the altar. I learned that the farmer has a whole lot more on his mind than just a talking horse.
You are my beloved.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. The number, if you want to join the show, is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And we may have a special third host joining us tonight. We'll wait on announcing who that is going to be if he steps through the door, which I expect him to probably within a matter of moments. There's, of course, a lot in the news worthy of discussion, and one of the most insane headlines that I saw today, and by the way, coming up, we'll talk about the pig story that you had last night, Bonnie, we didn't get to. But one of the most insane headlines that I saw today from The Independent in the UK is that the U.S. federal gang is considering sanctioning not Russia, but now India.
What? For Russia's actions?
So apparently, the UN had themselves a vote recently regarding the Ukraine situation. And in that vote, apparently the India government representatives abstained from the vote on the UN General Assembly resolution to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
That's funny, because when I saw that, I thought if I was one of them voting, not that I'd ever be a government official in the UN voting, but if I was, I would just abstain from that ridiculous vote.
They didn't take a position. They simply said, you know what, we're just going to step away from this. Even, you know what I heard the other day, too, is that Switzerland has finally stopped being neutral. After however many, decades.
I also saw that like 30 countries abstained.
Oh, really?
Or maybe like 20, but there were some that voted against it, and then like at least 20 or 30 that abstained.
Well, apparently now speaking to the members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, a senior U.S. diplomat said the Biden administration is considering sanctions against India. Simply because they didn't take the U.S.'s side, they're now talking about punishing the Indian people. Because remember, it is the people who suffer the greatest under sanctions.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. But this just goes to show this is just a criminal enterprise from top to bottom. If you don't go with the criminal gang, they will come after you. And in fact, I do have a story about sanctions from one of your favorite sources, Bonnie. You usually use not EFF. You use FEE. This is the Future of Freedom Foundation, another three-letter one. Jacob Hornberger writes this story about the evil of sanctions. He says, after maneuvering Russia into choosing either one, to permit the U.S. to install its missiles, bases, troops, tanks, and weaponry along Russia's border in Ukraine, or two, to invade Ukraine to prevent that from happening, Biden, the Pentagon, and the CIA are now responding to Russia, their choice of number two, by imposing brutal sanctions on the Russian people. Sure, they're making out like the sanctions are targeting Putin and the Russian elites in the government that are supporting the invasion, but that's just another lie. In fact, the sanctions are designed to do the same thing as against sanctions in Iran, Cuba, North Korea, China, Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. They are designed to squeeze the Russian people with impoverishment and even death in the hope that they will protest and cause Vladimir Putin to change course or even violently revolt against Putin's regime.
It's just crazy because I never remember, as a kid at least, watching like Fox News. I never remember the mainstream media ever saying there's going to be sanctions on this, but we're only going to target the government. And it just makes me wonder if it's libertarians who point out all the time sanctions only hurt the people that have convinced the mainstream media they need to try to kind of convince the American public, no, sanctions are fine because we're just targeting the government. I've never heard them say that before. We're just targeting the government with these sanctions.
We're just going after the bad guys.
I've never heard them say that.
But the reality is, and I don't know if you've seen any of this stuff, Bonnie, the average people over in Russia, many of whom are against war, many of whom do not want to see an invasion of Ukraine or continued conflict in Ukraine. Many of those people are being told, for instance, like OnlyFans, so what do you call them? Creators, I guess?
Yeah, and YouTubers.
Yep, and YouTubers. They're being cut off. They're being told, nope, we can't send money to your bank, so sorry, we're not going to be able to pay you due to you being in the wrong place, basically. And those are just two examples. I'm sure there are a myriad of other examples. There's one guy who's like in the crypto world who said he lived in Ukraine and escaped from Ukraine once all this thing got started. And he is, I forget exactly where he ended up, somewhere east of there. I don't think he's in Russia, but his credit cards and debit cards aren't working. So
wait, but he was a Ukrainian?
Maybe he was in Russia. I don't know. But anyway, somebody who, again, isn't one of the elites, but now can't use his debit cards. Luckily, he has some cryptocurrency on hand, so he's not completely impoverished and some desperate individual.
Did you see that the Washington Post called this right at the beginning the first crypto war?
No.
And I clicked on that just to see what the heck they meant by that, and it just said because it's the first war where people will use cryptocurrency to still spend money when their bank accounts get frozen and stuff like that. And I was just like, what a weird thing. Why would you call it a crypto war? That makes it sound like it's a war over crypto.
Yeah, it's definitely not that. At the same time, the Ukrainian government gang has been putting up cryptocurrency addresses for people to donate. And as of yesterday, it's probably a lot more by now, but as of yesterday, they had over $200 million worth of Bitcoin that have been donated, apparently.
And that's ridiculous.
It's insane.
I can't imagine giving any government cryptocurrency.
Right. You know they're going to use it to just kill people. Right. They're going to kill people with this money. They're going to enslave people. They're going to draft people. But anyway, as he points out in this story at the Future of Freedom Foundation, Hornberger writes that never mind that some protesters are likely to get killed or that a revolution will mean thousands of deaths. Because remember, the idea purportedly behind sanctions is to get people to revolt and overthrow the government. But that doesn't matter to the U.S. officials. What matters is the political goal they're striving to achieve with their sanctions.
Well, nobody revolted when the economy was the worst, it's been in years and people couldn't work or go outside. Nobody revolted, so why are they even trying sanctions? Nobody's going to care.
I mean, when have sanctions actually caused a revolt? Look at North Korea. They've been sanctioned for decades, and the people there are just either completely brainwashed and they believe the Kims are gods, or they don't believe that, but they're afraid to do anything because they're surrounded by a bunch of brainwashed people who will do whatever it is that the regime says. In Venezuela, they've had a lot of sanctions on for the last decade or whatever, but they haven't overthrown their government, although there have been some pretty raucous protests that have gone on in the last decade. Still, Maduro sitting pretty, fat and happy in the head office there. So they haven't overthrown there. And of course, in Cuba, the Castro brothers just got too old. I mean, Fidel Castro was no longer in charge of the country because he just got too old. He, ended up dying. So no one threw him out of office. So there's hardly any examples, none that I'm aware of sanctions actually causing an overthrow of a government. Just
Were there
doesn't happen.
sanctions on Somalia?
I don't know, because in Somalia, the government I don't remember the exact story, but
yeah,
their
I've never known the
failed,
story. I just know that they overthrew their government.
Yeah, no, I don't think that was because of sanctions. But any number of foreigners who get killed in the process of trying to achieve that goal is entirely acceptable to the U.S. gang. That's why, for example, U.S. Ambassador to the UN Madeleine Albright exclaimed that the deaths of 500,000 Iraqi children from the sanctions on Iraq were, quote, worth it.
Yep, I remember that.
The first thing that must be recognized is the fundamental evil of targeting innocent people with death and impoverishment as a way to achieve a political goal. Isn't that why we condemn terrorism? Where is the moral justification for targeting the Russian people with death and impoverishment simply because their government is doing something that is illegal or unjustifiable?
Yeah, if some radical Islamic or whatever went and suicide bombed and killed 30 people in a building, the government would be like, I stand with the blah 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 people against this horrific attack. But when they kill 500,000 Iraqi children in the name of, I don't know, taking over the Iraq government, it's worth it.
The number is 603-283-6160. You can join us here. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com. Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. It's bitcoin.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian and Bonnie in the studio tonight, and phones are open as always. You can join freedom-loving voluntarists and anarchists and libertarians for the upcoming Fork Fest. The 6th annual Fork Fest is happening this year, June 27th. Through July 3rd, and all you have to do to attend is get your campsite, your RV site, or your motel room reserved with Rogers Campground. There's no tickets for Fork Fest. It's a decentralized camping festival for freedom lovers, and it means that when I say it's decentralized, it means there's no center, there's no organizer.
You don't have to get something approved to be doing something for Fork Fest.
Yeah, you don't have to ask anyone's permission.
You don't have to buy a ticket.
You just get your campsite and then hang out with some freedom-loving people through Independence Day, actually. It ends July 3rd, but it's that Saturday. I think that's going to be the second Saturday, July 2nd. There's usually a really awesome fireworks show at the campground, so you don't want to miss that. And, of course, you also want to check out the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which was sold out for the first time ever last year. You can expect that one to sell out again. But, again, Fork Fest has no tickets, so there is no sellout status unless we can somehow fill the entire campground. I don't expect that that's going to happen. Forkfest is a much smaller event, so check out forkfest.party to learn more about it. That's an unofficial website. Again, forkfest.party. Again, head over to Rogers Campground to join us June 27th through July 3rd. We will be at Forkfest. Free Talk Live will be broadcasting, I should say. I don't know if I will be there. I hope to be, but I have to get permission from my federal masters first, basically have my restrictions reduced.
I hope we will.
I think I'm optimistic that is going to happen. But either way, Free Talk Live will be there. Forkfest.party is where you can learn more. We're going to talk more about sanctions on the way, plus a pig controversy in New York State. But first, it's Olivia calling from Arizona. Olivia, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. I decided to call early today because by the end of the show, the phone lines are usually pretty crowded nowadays.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know if more people are listening or just they've woken up after 3 hours.
I don't know. That just seems to be the way it goes for whatever reason. People, they just don't call until the last hour of the show in a lot of cases. But what was on your mind tonight?
So I finally joined social.freetalklive.com, and I kind of expected it to be a little like the Discord, but I've shared a lot of stuff and didn't get many replies, so I don't really know how it works, but it's been interesting so far to try to figure it out. I just wanted to say real quick on that, if you just go to social.freetalklive.com, it just brings up like a sign-up page.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to see what it looks like before you sign up for it, it would actually be social.freetalklive.com/the @ FTL if people just want to look at it. I just wanted to throw that out because
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, for a long time I didn't sign up because I was just like, I don't know what this is.
That's a good point. There are, I don't know how many active users on the site, but there are, it's not a huge site. There's not a ton of people on it. I think there's only several hundred people that have signed up, and some amount of that is spammers that we've had to delete their accounts.
I think a lot of it is following other people, so that way they'll follow you back and then they'll see your posts. Otherwise, they might not
you can see the posts of the whole site if you click on the local page that just shows every single post that's coming from anyone on the entire site. So yeah, there is a little learning curve. It does take a little bit of exploring, but it's really a lot like Twitter. So if you have used Twitter before, then you'll find it to be very familiar. If you're new to Twitter, if you've never used it before, then yeah, it'll definitely be a little bit of a learning curve. But check it out. It's social.freetalklive.com. What else, Olivia, was on your mind tonight?
And thanks, Bonnie, for following me. You made my day. So two things real quick. I watched a really interesting video. It was by it's right here. I pulled it right up. It was by Hudson Union Society, and it's John Perkins on how an economic hitman operates. Mm-hmm. And this John Perkins guy talks. Have you heard of him already?
Yeah, I remember hearing. If it's the same guy I'm thinking of, he used to work for the IMF, and he explained how the IMF would give loans to these poor African nations, and then, you know, if the nations would default on the loans, they would own their assets, basically, at that point.
Yes, exactly. And well, just poor countries around the world, including South America. So they would offer these huge loans that they knew that these countries probably couldn't pay back. But the worst part is that the money would actually go to these large, like, American corporations. So the money wasn't even really going to the country. It was going to corporations to build infrastructure, but the corporations didn't have to pay it back. The countries did. So the countries basically became slaves of the United States. And he mentions that the countries that refused, such as Panama and Ecuador, he mentions Panama and Ecuador, he says the jackals could come in after him, which were CIA operatives who would assassinate them. And he mentions two of the leaders, one from Ecuador and one from Panama, who were assassinated because he literally says, because I couldn't corrupt them. So when you hear about freezing bank accounts of the Canadians and things like that, it's just like there's no lengths these people won't go to. Like, I feel like if that didn't stop people, they would have no problems in bombing one of our own cities. And I just don't. I mean,
yeah, if it justified war, you better believe it. If they wanted to go to war and they felt like they didn't have a good excuse that's going to persuade the American people, like weapons,
9/11,
or weapons of mass destruction or whatever their boogeyman is, then I wouldn't put it past them. I think they absolutely would bomb their own people.
I think they did.
A false flag to do that. Olivia, anything else you want to share tonight?
Well, I don't think it would even be a false flag. Well, in Wellington in New Zealand, they actually set protest. They had protesters had a tent, like a tent. I wouldn't say city, but they had set up tents because they were protesting long term, and they just set them on fire. They created like this firestorm, and I mean, how much further if people refuse the draft to go to war or something? I mean, they could just start maybe just, I don't know, killing people. I really don't know where this stops. I mean, if they're willing to assassinate leaders of foreign countries for not taking loans that are clearly usurious, I don't know where it would stop.
It wouldn't stop. I mean, these people are power sick freaks, and they will do anything to keep and expand that power.
Yeah.
And thank you, Olivia, for the call tonight. I appreciate it.
We were just talking about Madeleine Albright saying that the 500,000 Iraqi children that died due to the U.S. going in, the first time
doing
a
the way,
war
this was in
Iraq.
The 90s.
She said it was worth it.
That's right.
Quote,
by the way,
worth it.
Welcome to the show, TJ.
TJ the Spy in the studio, my good sir. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I have an interesting proposal when we come back from our sponsors. Ian, I have something to talk with you about Pi Day coming up.
Oh, okay. All right, we can do that. And I know you're in town. I didn't know you were coming to Keene, so this is a total surprise. Matt actually just happened to be sick tonight, and so here you are. You're sitting in for him.
I know. Chicken soup for Matt.
Thanks for joining us here. We'll get into Pi Day on the way, plus plenty to talk about with the pig controversy, more on sanctions. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. Plus, RT America is shutting down completely. They're closing their American division. The number is 603-283-6160, and the phones are, of course, open for you if you want to weigh in here. 603-283-6160.
I'm glad to know that was the real Olivia that I followed back on the Mastodon.
Very good. More coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. convictions. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Air raid sirens sounding again in Kyiv tonight after Vladimir Putin insisted today that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is going according to plan. In an appearance on Russian state television and during a 90-minute phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron, he made it clear he has no plans to back down. Some Russians are making the decision to evacuate their country, fearful that President Putin will declare a state of emergency and crack down further on dissent. From FSN's Moscow bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We've had Alexei Navalny, that well-known opposition activist. He's currently in prison, but he's put out a message through his lawyers onto social media calling for there to be daily protests, not just here in Russia, but also in Belarus and in countries around the world. So I think we are watching very carefully to see if that call from Alexei Navalny really drives more numbers, bigger numbers, to come out onto the streets of Russian cities as we head into the weekend.
Talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials today appear to have secured an agreement to create a humanitarian corridor that will allow civilians to leave Ukraine and medical supplies to arrive. White House officials say U.S. intelligence believes a Russian military convoy heading towards Kyiv has been stalled by Ukrainian forces. But White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said American fighter jets will certainly not be attacking it.
One of the reasons the president pushed to expedite the approval and delivery of a security package over the weekend was to give them, the Ukrainians, more support, more equipment, more defensive weapons to utilize in this moment. We are not reconsidering or taking steps that would prompt a war between the United States and Russia.
The U.S. sanctioned 8 Russians with close ties to President Vladimir Putin today, including his Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. FSN's Nick Harper in our Washington bureau with the details.
Among those blacklisted is Russian billionaire Elisha Usmanov. Germany seized his $600 million yacht on Wednesday. Also sanctioned Dmitry Peskov, who, as the Kremlin spokesman, the Biden administration describes as a top purveyor of Putin's propaganda. The White House also announced visa restrictions for 19 oligarchs and 47 family members.
And the White House says President Biden has made no decision on whether to ban imports of Russian oil into the United States. Georgia and Moldova say they've applied to join the European Union in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the Kremlin's main propaganda arm in the United States is shutting down. The production company behind TV network RT America has laid off most of its staff and says the move is permanent. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join the show here if you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Ian, TJ the Spy,
and Bonnie.
Of course, you can bring up anything you want. Coming up, we're going to get into the story that Bonnie has to talk about. She brought it in last night. We didn't get a chance to get to it. It's about a pig, not a cop, like an actual oink-oink pig. That's caused some controversy in New York State, the Empire State. We'll get into that story in a little bit. Plus, we were talking about sanctions before you arrived, TJ, and you had something about Pi Day you wanted to announce?
Well, yes. As you know, I am a mathematician and engineer, so Pi Day, as you know, pi is 3.14 approximately, and one of the things we engineers do to entertain ourselves to try and show who knows more pi or digits of e or any other random constant, and we try to memorize 50 to 100 digits just to show off. So this is one thing that I usually do, and I mention this because March 14th this year is Pi Day.
It's always Pi Day.
It's always Pi Day every March 14th.
Yeah.
But pi is approximately equal to 3.14159265358 358 323 846264338 327 9502 884 197 169 399 37510 582 097 4944.
Were you checking it right there, Bonnie?
Yep, I was checking his work.
Yeah.
I Googled it.
He nailed it?
Yep.
Okay. And how many digits was that?
I think it's like 70 or so.
Wow.
You know what James, my husband, said when I did that to him? He said, that's not 100. And I said, honey, I didn't know I needed to memorize 100 digits of pi to prove my undying love for you.
I'm divorcing you.
Well, I point this out because it's like push-ups. You know, how many push-ups can you do? And I don't care if you can do 5 or 1 or 10. I just want to know how many you can do, and then how many do you think you could do if you trained for a year doing push-ups all day? How many consecutive push-ups do you think you can do? And I think that's a wonderful thing you can do for the mind. Pi is a useful constant anyway, and you know it's always kind of fun to memorize things. At least it was for me. But I mentioned that because March 14th this year, I received, thanks to Postal Inspector Brian Evans of the Boston Field Office, a summons to appear on March 14th. So you, my good sir, messed up my Pi Day. I'm going to be spending it in New Hampshire in front of the grand jury. Well, possibly. Maybe. So that leads you. You know Law and Order, right?
No, I've heard of it. It's a television.
It's a television law drama. It's a television law drama with Jack McCoy and a whole bunch of police where they go around investigating crimes. But one of the things they talk about is privilege, like attorney-client privilege or doctor-patient privilege, when the police cannot compel somebody to testify in court. One of those privileges is spousal privileges, priest-penitent privilege, when you go confess to a priest. Well, spousal privilege means I cannot be compelled to testify against James since he's my lawfully wedded husband. Now, hear me out here, Ian. Since you cannot be compelled to testify against your lawfully wedded spouse, and since I am scheduled to be going before the grand jury, I just want to know, Ian, will you marry me? I will sign all the prenuptials. I'm not after your millions of dollars in Bitcoin, although that certainly helps.
I don't have any.
I'm not after you. And trust me, Bonnie can still take care of you in all those ways that heterosexual men need to be taken care of that men can't take care of each other with. So... You know, I just wanted to know that will get me out of testifying if I'm legally married to you. James said he wouldn't be happy getting divorced, but he'd do it for you too. That he'd be.
But then they could force you to testify against James.
That is true. So I got to pick a boat and ride it, my good sir.
Well, I certainly would not want you to.
Okay, abandon James. Good. Yes. Good.
Dedicated love of your life, who you spent the last half a decade with.
Yes, I know. Can you believe it's been over 6 years? Wow. How time flies when you're happy.
Is that your best relationship?
Yeah, actually, it outlasted my marriage. My marriage lasted 5 years to the day. I was going on a honeymoon anniversary cruise.
To the day?
To the day. And instead of tickets for our honeymoon ticket to Belize, I got served divorce papers. And
wow.
That was... Knife takes a nosedive.
This is just the federal government's way of telling you you never should have left New Hampshire.
Exactly. James, you know, as he was complaining about all the money he was spending on lawyers, because he has a lawyer too, they've summoned him. And so he's trying to get the subpoena quashed in court or trying to get some other way out. But
somehow Mark Edge was able to do that. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
his
magic
attorney
words.
Robin got him out of that. He invoked his Fifth Amendment, and under the rules...
See, now this is the thing. Now, you can clarify the rules because you pay attention to these things.
Yes.
But I remember when Chelsea Manning got out of prison, they then subpoenaed her to a grand jury, and she refused to go, and that was supposed to lock her back up in prison until the end of the grand jury, which could be like 16 months.
16 months,
something
generally.
like that. So how can somebody just file paperwork and just say, nah, we're not going?
It's one of the few exceptions where you don't have a right to confront your accuser. If you go before a judge and the judge says, squeal, you've been given immunity. So, I mean, one of the things in court, you always have a Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate yourself or to not testify. So the way the prosecution pierces that protection, in the lawyer speak, they pierce the protection of the Fifth Amendment, is they give you immunity. They say, okay, as long as you testify truthfully about what crime occurred, we will not prosecute you for it, but we need your testimony to go after this other bad guy.
So you think that's what Mark might have done, was say, hey, you're going to give me immunity? And
Actually, yeah, that's exactly what his attorney did. He said, my client will not speak without immunity, and the attorney, the U.S. attorney, refused to give it to Mark.
I see.
And the idea being, if Mark was actually involved in this, like say he was the mastermind of some criminal enterprise, it would be kind of dumb to give him immunity. And then he pulls off his Scooby-Doo mask and says, ha ha, I was really the one. Ian was just a patsy. You know, he never did anything. It was me all along.
So, TJ, is it a hard decision to choose which boat to ride, your husband of 6 years or Ian?
You know, there are so many wonderful things I like about both, and I look forward to seeing how your guys' relationship develops over the coming years. I hope it's fruitful and successful. I know it'll be interesting because I've known Ian for a long time, and nothing boring ever happens with him. It's, you know, I just figure like maybe, you know, if I were married to Ian, it's like, honey, can we just go out for ice cream? Instead, do we have to get raided by the FBI every 6 months or 5 years? Or do we have to have the postal inspectors?
It's really annoying.
I know it
really
is. I thought you would have just, why not just tick off the FBI, Ian? Why do you got to bring in the IRS, the ATF, the postal inspectors? Yeah. Next, you're going to have Bureau of Land Management. They're going to be arresting you for illegal cattle grazing in your backyard. You didn't pay your cattle ranching fees like the Bundys did.
But you're actually here to head to the Liberty Forum this weekend, right?
That is correct. Tomorrow is start of Liberty Forum.
That's right. Yeah, they do an evening thing on Friday, so there's not a whole lot going on.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we're not going tomorrow.
You're staying at the hotel out there?
Oh, yeah, I'm staying at the Best Western in, I think it's Manchester?
Yeah, it's the Best Western Plus. It's out by the airport. By the way, this event is a sold-out event. Liberty Forum, I think the last time they sold out was when Ron Paul spoke in like 2007 or 8 or something like that.
Is that when he signed the Shire Society Declaration?
No, that was years later.
Oh.
No,
Where was he? Did he go to Pork Fest?
No, L. Stone, who's a liberty activist here in New Hampshire, found Ron Paul. He was or he confronted him or whatever. He was in Colorado, actually. There was some sort of a crypto conference that Ron Paul was speaking at in Colorado, like a crypto freedom conference. And Ron Paul was on the stage. And after the speech, L. Stone managed to get Ron Paul's attention for a little while, and he unrolled the Shire Society Declaration. He had his own copy, calligraphied, official copy or whatever of it, and he got Ron Paul to sign it.
Yeah, and he allowed me to sign it, his copy that is signed by Ron Paul, but he would not allow me to take a picture.
So weird. Stone's an interesting character.
Yeah, I like Al Stone.
I wanted to. Now I don't even tell anyone that story ever because I'm like, I don't have any proof.
Yeah,
I signed it right next to Ron Paul. Well, maybe not like touching, but I wanted it in the same vicinity as Ron Paul's.
So it was true.
I know it's true. And Al Stone knows it's true.
I think he's willing to sell that thing, but I don't know what his asking price is. I think it's
one Bitcoin.
Quite high. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty important document for freedom lovers. If you haven't checked out the Shire Society Declaration, you can go to shiresociety.com. It's basically a personal declaration of independence. It's like a hardcore voluntarist statement of freedom from the state. And the fact that Ron Paul signed that is pretty awesome.
Amazing.
And that is amazing.
And he is, by the way, a supporter of the Free State Project, Ron Paul. He has endorsed the Free State Project in the past and thinks it's a great idea for freedom-loving people to gather together in one geographic area. And so that's part of what's happening this weekend is hundreds of people will be at this Best Western that is in Manchester, and there's going to be speeches and panels and lunches and things like that. More coming up. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealestate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way,
love as your guide,
and liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and you can join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. More about sanctions on the way here tonight. Ian, TJ, and Bonnie are in the studio, and you can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. Join our Matrix chat server. It is a self-hosted server. And it can be encrypted, so like you can create your own chat room there. You can have it be public or private. It can be encrypted or unencrypted. It is completely up to you how to set it up, and it's free. So head over to chat.freetalklive.com to get step-by-step instructions on how to join our server there. And Matrix is federated as well, which means that you can connect from our Matrix server to other people's Matrix servers and vice versa. Although there are some channels that I set up, so there's like kind of the official Free Talk Live channels, and then there's dozens of others that our listeners created, which is really cool. Which is different from Discord, by the way. Discord is completely centrally controlled. When we had a Discord, we had to be the ones to create the channels and delete the channels or whatever. Our listeners couldn't do any of that themselves. And Discord is centrally controlled by a corporation, so they have all kinds of rules. In fact, I just saw today, it was, I think, Odyssey on their social media. They posted that Discord, no, it was Library, LBRY. .com. They posted that Discord has in their terms of service no misinformation allowed. So that, huge loophole that you can drive a truck through and just call anything they don't like misinformation. They can just shut your entire Discord server down at any time if they just don't like your opinions. And they have done that. They shut ours down a couple of years ago now. So we've been on Matrix ever since, and it's been absolutely great. You can go to chat.freetalklive.com because we're in control of the server. There's no one else who can tell us what to do, which is awesome. Chat.freetalklive.com. Let's go to Tom. He's in New Hampshire. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Good evening. You know what would really be awesome? You know how these Ukrainians are fighting back against the Russians, troops that are and forces that are advancing, and they're slowing down the Russians, is if the Ukrainians kick the Russians' butts and the Russians get kicked out of Ukraine, and then all these Russian freedom fighters from age 16 up to age 60, and they don't have the ladies around, so they say, hey, why stop with the Russian forces? What about the Ukrainian government? I don't know much about the Ukrainian government myself, but if they're like most countries, there's all kinds of nasty drug laws and collecting school taxes and forcing children to attend school so they can learn all about how lucky they are to live in a free country, kind of like they do in a lot of countries. In the United States, it's everything from agricultural subsidies to zoning variances. What if they just say, like the Twisted Sister song, we're not going to take it. And they fight back against the Ukrainian government, and they establish a libertarian paradise in Ukraine. And then much the way
that is a silly fantasy.
It is because Ukraine is losing already.
Well, I mean, it's hard to know what the truth is, Bonnie, as far as who's winning or losing.
But I thought Russia said, okay, now that I'm winning, I'm going to take over the whole country.
Well, I mean, there's a mainstream media article claiming that Russia is intending to, the Russian government, I should say, is intending to take over the entire Ukraine. I don't know if Putin himself has said that at this point. We can dig deeper into that here in moments, but I think it's too early to say whether someone is winning or losing in this conflict. One thing's for sure, it's the people that lose in any war, and that's what we were talking about with the sanctions earlier. We're going to get back into that, how people are being punished in Russia for the actions of the criminal government of Russia. And I just want to clarify, all governments are criminals.
Well, I also want to ask Tom if he's heard of the story from 2021 where Ukrainians surrounded and threw a politician into the trash can.
I did not hear about that story, but the way the American Revolution inspired they say the French Revolution and eventually the Brazilian revolt against the Portuguese and Brazilian independence. What if the Ukrainians establish a libertarian paradise in Ukraine and they inspire the rest of the world to throw off the shackles of school taxes and zoning restrictions and anybody.
Well, the odds that a libertarian paradise is going to come up in Ukraine seem very, very low. Yeah. The Ukraine, by the way, on the Fraser Institute Economic Freedom of the World.
You keep saying the Ukraine.
Yeah, it's a bad habit. The Economic Freedom of the World 2021 study that came out at the end of last year, Fraser Institute ranks Ukraine at number 129 in the red, the bad section of the lower quarter of all of the world's countries. On this list, there are only 165 countries. So Ukraine is number 129. Under is ranked lower as far as economic freedom than Senegal, Papua New Guinea, Vietnam, Bolivia, and many others, including the Russian Federation, which is ranked at number 100.
So maybe they'll revolt against the Ukrainian government to fight for more economic freedom, and then anybody could buy a house on the market and open a saloon or a casino or a brothel or an opium den, and there'd be no laws against it because it would be a free country.
Well, that would be wonderful, and if that does happen, Tom, I will...
I'm getting my plane ticket.
Yeah, sign me up, because I definitely am interested in going to the freest place, and thank you for the call tonight. However, I'm convinced that New Hampshire is the freest place on the planet as far as, states are concerned. Obviously, it still has a state, and it's still part of the United States, so we need to rectify those situations and secede as quickly as possible from the United States, which I've been saying for many, many years. And more people are now talking about peaceful secession than ever before. But when you look at the Fraser, very same institute here, Fraser Institute, which is based, I believe, in Canada, they do a yearly economic freedom study, not just of the world, but they also do a North American freedom study. And guess which state/province is number one?
New Hampshire?
New Hampshire.
Yeah.
It's number one. And that's out of all of Canadian provinces, U.S. states, and Mexican states.
Wow.
New Hampshire is the number one most economically free.
And of the world, right?
Well, the problem with the Fraser Institute study is the economic freedom of the world study is separate from the North American study. So when it comes to the economic freedom of the world study, they only look at the United States as a whole. They don't look at New Hampshire.
Is the United States as a whole number one?
No. The United States is number 6.
What's number one?
Hong Kong.
Oh,
still.
okay, yeah.
Even though China took it over in the late 90s, it hasn't completely snuffed out.
Just economic freedom, though, right?
Correct.
So what is the number one most free? Do they have that?
There is a different study that looks at, I believe, all freedoms or looks at a wider selection of freedoms. And offhand, I don't remember whose study that is. So I don't have that handy. But prior to the United States or above the United States on this list, you got Hong Kong at number 1, Singapore at number 2, New Zealand at number 3. And we know that these are places that don't have great personal freedoms, right?
Yeah.
Switzerland at number 4 and Georgia at number 5, the former Russian state.
Wow.
Which is interesting. So that, I think, if you broke out New Hampshire from the United States, because remember, California and New York and all the worst of the United States are bringing the United States' numbers down. So if we were to break out New Hampshire from the U.S. on this chart, I mean, U.S. isn't that far from Hong Kong. Out of 10 points, a possible maximum 10 points, Hong Kong gets 8.91 and the U.S. 8.24. So they're within the same point range. And so I just suspect New Hampshire is going to be higher up than Georgia and Switzerland and New Zealand and the rest of them. But there's no way to know for sure.
No. Certainly the state of California or Illinois.
They drag us down for sure.
California is, I think, number 49 and New York number 50 when you look at the economic freedom of the world, or no, sorry,
states.
Freedom, freedom in the 50 states. That's the one that looks at all freedoms. So that just focuses on the states. There is another one for the world, and again, I'm not recalling which one that is at this moment. So the number is 603-283-6160. We were talking about economic sanctions and how, according to the Future of Freedom Foundation, that this really hurts people. It hurts the average people of any given country when sanctions are put upon them. And I'm going to continue with that story here. The Future of Freedom Foundation, it's Jacob G. Horberger. He's the founder of that organization. They do some great work. He's a really principled libertarian. We're going to get into that coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. We've also got this controversy with a pig in New York State that you want to tell us about tonight, Bonnie. That's on the way. And again, open phones every night here on Free Talk Live.
Not the donut eating pigs.
No, the other. Well, you got to correct yourself there. Actually, when Mark Edge had a bunch of pigs, he fed them donuts because he was getting donuts.
Well, I've heard they'll eat anything, even like dead bodies.
Right.
So
he was getting stale donuts from like one of the local donut manufacturers and feeding them to his pigs. Hour 2 is coming up. You can take control of the airwaves here. This is Free Talk Live. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Air raid sirens sounding again in Kiev tonight after Vladimir Putin insisted today that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is going according to plan. In an appearance on Russian state television and during a 90-minute phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron, he made it clear he has no plans to back down. Some Russians are making the decision to evacuate their country, fearful that President Putin will declare a state of emergency and crack down further on dissent. From FSN's Moscow bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We've had Alexei Navalny, that well-known opposition activist. He's currently in prison, but he's put out a message through his lawyers onto social media calling for there to be daily protests, not just here in Russia, but also in Belarus and in countries around the world. So I think we are watching very carefully to see if that call from Alexei Navalny really drives more numbers, bigger numbers, to come out onto the streets of Russian cities as we head into the weekend.
Talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials today appear to have secured an agreement to create a humanitarian corridor that will allow civilians to leave Ukraine and medical supplies to arrive. White House officials say U.S. intelligence believes a Russian military convoy heading towards Kiev has been stalled by Ukrainian forces. But White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said American fighter jets will certainly not be attacking it.
One of the reasons the president pushed to expedite the approval and delivery of a security package over the weekend was to give them, the Ukrainians, more support, more equipment, more defensive weapons to utilize in this moment. We are not reconsidering or taking steps that would prompt a war between the United States and Russia.
The U.S. sanctioned 8 Russians with close ties to President Vladimir Putin today, including his Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. FSN's Nick Harper in our Washington bureau with the details.
Among those blacklisted is Russian billionaire Elisha Usmanov. Germany seized his $600 million yacht on Wednesday. Also sanctioned Dmitry Peskov, who, as the Kremlin spokesman, the Biden administration describes as a top purveyor of Putin's propaganda. The White House also announced visa restrictions for 19 oligarchs and 47 family members.
And the White House says President Biden has made no decision on whether to ban imports of Russian oil into the United States. Georgia and Moldova say they've applied to join the European Union in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the Kremlin's main propaganda arm in the United States is shutting down. The production company behind TV network RT America has laid off most of its staff and says the move is permanent. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, what Russians are being told about events in Ukraine. The story being spun by the Kremlin to Russia's population is largely fictional, but the result of Vladimir Putin's relentless 20-year campaign to shut down or expropriate media outlets that fail to hew to the Kremlin's propaganda. Dominic Waghorn, International Affairs Editor for Sky News, is on special assignment in Moscow.
The official media is still saying this is effectively a limited special military operation designed to liberate the East to help those Ukrainians who are Russian separatists or Russian-speaking, who they say have been treated terribly for the last 8 years. And so the focus is on what looked like contrived pictures of Russian troops being welcomed as liberators, pictures of Ukrainians hunkering down in shelters. And there's not much mention of the much larger scale multi-front operation that's happening in the rest of Ukraine. I think if you're a better connected, better educated Russian, then you've got access to the internet. You are seeing a bigger picture, and that's why I think we're seeing younger, more metropolitan people turning out to protest.
One influential voice silenced this week by the Kremlin, Echo Moskvy, the country's leading independent radio station. It was last closed down during the attempted coup against Mikhail Gorbachev in August 1991. It survived that, only to face Putin's action this week. The main news again, air raid sirens have been sounding in Kiev after Vladimir Putin insisted the Russian invasion of Ukraine is going according to plan. Talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials appear to have agreed to create a humanitarian corridor to allow civilians to leave Ukraine and medical supplies to arrive. And the US has sanctioned 8 Russians tied to President Vladimir Putin, including the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A severe allergic reaction causes Florida to swell up to twice its normal size. And a Ford assembly line worker is thinking about asking out a cute welding robot from work. It's time for the weekly feature with over 14 subliminal and completely unapologetic cues to purchase Energizer batteries. This is the Onion Week in Review. Area man Brett Lucier told reporters Tuesday he was left winded after placing a particularly lengthy lunch order at a local Wendy's. A weary Lucier said he struggled to get through the 7-item order and even suffered a cramp while asking for the spicy chicken sandwich.
I thought I was just about done after I ordered that junior bacon cheeseburger, but I was able to get that Frosty in there too.
And in this week's op-ed pages, a local man talks about how he was always just one of those kids who was off by himself taking cats apart to see how they work. In your hands right now are the 24 AA Energizer lithium batteries you were subconsciously manipulated into purchasing. We make no apology. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, open phones. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight is Ian, TJ, and Bonnie. You can join the show here, 603-283-6160. Last hour, I brought up a story here from the Future of Freedom Foundation's Jacob Hornberger, talking about what are sanctions really? Because the government gang wants you to believe that, oh, no, this is just targeting the elite oligarchs. This is just going after the wealthiest, most connected Russians.
As though that makes it okay. If somebody's I don't know where this came from, but there seems to be a hatred of the rich.
Because they have too much. They could be
money that
doing
they didn't
something
earn,
else for
that
me.
They didn't, or that they stole. The only way rich people got to be rich is by stealing it from the poor people somehow.
Yeah, somebody said that recently, that they said that the only thing they don't like about billionaires is one thing I will agree with is that in America, with the corporate cronies, it may be true that to become a billionaire, you have to be doing things that are somewhat immoral to a libertarian. I don't know.
A lot of them are tied in with the government, and
because you have to be, you have to ask the government for permission and stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't make me feel like I owe them something. It just makes me say I want to use cryptocurrency. Or
the state will prohibit competition from these cronies. They won't allow upstarts and innovators to enter an industry.
Yeah, I think it was Aria that brought up that point, and it's kind of a good point. But it doesn't make me think that they should be. I don't know.
Well, as far as where it came from, TJ, that's an excellent question. Where did the hatred of
the rich?
I mean, because it's just straight jealousy, right?
I mean, I understand. There's always been the haves and the have-lessers, or the have-mores and the have-lessers, and there's always been this hatred of the rich people look down on the poor, and the poor people hate the rich for being rich. I just don't know why, because for me, I'm poor, but that's by choice. James, if we wanted to, $250,000 a year, we could easily go get engineering and high big boy accounting jobs. Mm-hmm. But we're happy living an average life and not having a lot of stress and not having to deal with the boss that you hate. And so I said to James, as long as you're making a decent wage and you're not miserable, that's all I want out of your work, because you got to do it 40 hours a week. And I know your opinion is jobs suck, Ian, but sometimes those of us who aren't fortunate enough to start a radio network like you have, with a bunch of syndicate stations.
Well, I mean, it didn't have to do with fortune as much as it did
hard work,
putting the work in. I think that,
and it wasn't luck.
Okay, it was hard work.
Yeah.
Okay, let me take out the word luck and use hard work.
I'm not going to even call it hard work, but it was. I had the stick-to-itiveness, if you will, to keep at it.
He believed in himself after his guidance counselor told him he could never do it.
And but for people that want to be successful at what they love, I mean, I think that the world makes that possible. If you have a relative freedom, you can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that it just depends on what you want in life. And if what you want is to work for someone else, then there's plenty of people that'll let you do that.
Oh yeah,
and that's fine,
and
if
James,
that's what's
he's an
comfortable
Obamacare compliance specialist, so he makes money helping doctors fill out thousands or tens of thousands of pages of regulatory compliance paperwork. But he'll be the first to admit that he doesn't do anything to actually improve health care. He doesn't see any patients. He doesn't take blood pressure. He doesn't draw blood.
Wait, is he the people that if I called the number on the Obamacare website and I tried to get health care, would he answer the phone or no?
No, that would be someone else. That would be like an Obamacare navigator. And I said,
because those people suck.
Yeah, I said it's really bad when you have to hire government employees to explain the law to the average person.
And it's so hard. They're never good at it. I used to have to be on Obamacare.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with the law, there's 100,000 pages of just the United States Federal Code.
It's only 100,000?
It's only 100,000. That's not the code.
Well, get reading.
Yeah, I know. And it's like it's not readable or understandable.
No, it's not.
Dense, legalese, mumbo jumbo.
It's hard to understand 2 paragraphs of it.
But all the cops know all of it.
20 pages, and no, they don't.
No, they don't. Neither does the prosecutor, which is why, and the law is so intricate and well-defined. People can be found guilty when they're innocent just by the definition of a word, or they can be found not guilty because a word was arbitrary, kind of ambiguous. So I said legal land, as you've pointed out many times, words mean the opposite of what most people think they mean.
So I think, but to further answer your question about where did hatred of the rich come from, I think it's just there's a natural ingrained jealousy of people who have more. I think that's just something that the politicians play off of. Even though the politicians themselves are the 1%.
Yes.
People ignore that.
Yeah, people just ignore that for some reason. It's like Sarah from New Mexico. She ignores that that preacher she loves, I think Joyce Meyer, is a millionaire. Multi-millionaire probably.
Right.
Because even though she's a communist, Sarah is a communist, she doesn't mind Joyce Meyer being a multi-millionaire because I don't even know. I can't remember.
Sarah's a total hypocrite. I mean, that's the because.
Well, communists are really, they all talk about being for the common poor and working man, but when they get like the Black Lives Matter, when they got that mansion, I saw woo-wee. I just said, I want to start an activist group and get a lot of money and just sell out.
Well, unfortunately, activism usually doesn't lead to a lot of money.
Big paying gigs,
at all.
yeah.
But back to the story here from Jacob Hornberger at the Future of Freedom Foundation. He's talking about the sanctions against people. What does it actually mean? Well, it turns out it actually hurts the average person. And the idea, at least according to the government advocates, is that, if you hurt the people of Russia where it hurts, like hit them in the pocketbook, the sanctions, then they'll overthrow the government, even though there's no evidence that really ever happens. He goes on, he says, the first thing that must be recognized is the fundamental evil of targeting innocent people with death and impoverishment as a way to achieve a political goal. Isn't that why we condemn terrorism? Where's the moral justification for targeting the Russian people with death and impoverishment simply because their government is doing something that's illegal or unjustifiable? The problem is that Americans have become so accustomed to sanctions and embargoes as a foreign policy tool that they are unable to recognize the evil on which they're based. But the fact is that sanctions and embargoes are no different in principle from terrorism, in that they both target innocent people with death and suffering as a way to achieve a political goal. And go ahead and look up the definition for terrorism. That's exactly what it is.
Well, then they have to change the definition of terrorism.
Well, they haven't done that yet. The second thing that must be recognized, sanctions don't achieve their political goal, which means the death and suffering they inflict is useless. Consider the 60-year embargo on Cuba. It was intended to oust Fidel Castro from power, and after he died, to oust Cuba's communist regime from power and replace it with another pro-U.S. dictatorship. It still hasn't achieved its goal, notwithstanding the death and suffering that it has inflicted on the Cuban people for 6 decades.
Oh, yeah. And there's a good example of the haves and the have-mores and the have-lessers. The have-lessers, the politicians will come in and say, hey, it's not right. This guy over here has more than you. Vote me in. I'll tax him or I'll expropriate his stuff like Nicolas Maduro did or Hugo Chavez did in Venezuela. And that is when North Korea, when you start seizing people's property and killing people who object to having their property stolen, that's when you see a huge exodus from the country because smart people say, we can see where this is going.
Sure.
You'll be rewarded for loyalty, but if you ever run afoul of the regime, you will quickly find yourself in the dungeon.
And you can easily run afoul of the regime.
Yes.
You become friends with the wrong person or
say the wrong thing.
Or you stop clapping.
Stop clapping at the wrong time.
Although you mentioned North Korea, Bonnie, they don't have elections there. So they don't even have a semblance of that.
That's not what I meant about the expropriation.
Why would they need elections? Everybody, 100% of them love Kim Jong-un.
That's what the official line is.
That's the official line. There isn't a single person in North Korea who objects to Kim Jong-un's
right, because they'll put you in a death camp if you say anything. Consider the brutal system of sanctions on Iraq. It contributed to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of children. Yes, children.
And all the things you're saying right now just make me think that they just actually like to cause suffering because
sure, why wouldn't
they're
sick.
Like he's saying, Jacob Hornberger is saying, the sanctions don't do what they are trying to make them do at all. So why wouldn't they be trying new things? No, I think they just like to cause suffering. We saw
because they can.
Nancy Pelosi clapping when Joe Biden brought up American soldiers breathing in toxic chemicals in Iraq. Why does she do that? She just likes death and suffering.
It was more of like rubbing her hands together in a really bizarre...
It was really creepy, and she was smiling, and she stood up like it was time to applaud.
Yeah, it was very strange. You're talking about the speech this week.
The State of the Union address.
More coming up here about... And you're right, Bonnie. These people are sickos. They're power sickos. More coming up.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me
who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live phones are open. You can join us here, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. Archives go back for many years, and they are free. Once again, that's freetalklive.com. And I do want to say thank you to Libertariat, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program at the Diamond level. Definitely appreciate that level of support. All we ask for is $5 a month. Libertariat doing many times that over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. That's where you can get signed up. It's a Patreon, so easy to join. You can use your credit card, debit card, or PayPal to get on board and get some cool perks at amps.freetalklive.com. We are talking, by the way, with you tonight, it's Ian.
TJ the Spy.
And Bonnie.
We're talking about the system of sanctions, because whenever they report on sanctions on television, it always just sounds like no biggie. I mean, the word sanction doesn't sound very serious. Like,
doesn't sound evil.
Right. Oh, we're just sanctioning the well, and then when they go further, they'll say, "Oh no, we're only targeting the elites. We're only targeting Putin and his buddies. We're only going after the biggest and the worst Russian banks. That's it. That's all." But that's not it, because sanctions absolutely affect the average people. As we've been seeing, people have been shut off from their YouTube payments. People have been shut off from OnlyFans payments. And those are just two examples that I've seen.
Not
recently.
OnlyFans.
Well, whether you like it or not, people make money on OnlyFans. And a lot of people have been able to quit their job. And I imagine some jobs in Russia really suck. And these people have managed to, because they're pretty or whatever, they've been able to make some money and make it directly, or at least close to directly. They're still the intermediary because they haven't gone to a completely crypto setup yet. So you still have to rely on this centralized company, in the case of YouTube or OnlyFans or whatever, to pay you. Well, all of a sudden, these companies aren't doing that. And you can thank the sanctions for that. But there's more here from Jacob Hornberger. He points out that the sanctions have never achieved what they are intending to achieve, supposedly. When you listen to the politicians pitch it, it's like, oh, well, if we punish the people enough, they'll overthrow their governments. And it hasn't happened in Cuba. It hasn't happened in Iraq.
Venezuela,
Iran, you name it. Consider the brutal sanctions against Iran, he talks about here next. The U.S. officials have targeted the Iranian people with death and suffering in the hope that they will rise up and oust Iran's anti-U.S. regime and replace it with another pro-U.S. dictatorship, similar to that of the Shah of Iran, who the CIA installed into power with a coup in 1953, which, by the way, is what they supposedly did in 2014 in Ukraine, which was the CIA
Zelensky,
installed Zelensky. Despite the... Oh, by the way, did you see the picture of Zelensky with Justin Trudeau?
No.
Yeah, there's a picture Zelensky posted to his own social media profile where he's shaking hands with Justin Trudeau from Canada, the dictator there, and he said that it's Trudeau who inspired him to become a politician.
Oh no, so now we know he is bad.
Of course he's bad.
I already knew he was bad.
So's Putin, but they're all bad. Despite the death and suffering among the Iranian people, Iran's theocratic dictatorship remains in power. And I remember the first example that I really struck home with me about sanctions and just the damage they do to the average person. It was years ago. I think it was at the Liberty Forum, the very same event that we're going to be going to this weekend. TJ, we're going to be there as well, by the way.
Wonderful.
We'll be there on behalf of New Hampshire Goldback. So if you're going to be at the Liberty Forum, come see us. We'll be in the vendor room probably most of the time. But the folks who were there that I spoke to about this were the guys from Lamasu, which, for listeners that don't know, still is a Bitcoin vending machine company that was founded here in New Hampshire by Free Staters, a couple guys, a couple twin brothers that founded this company.
And they didn't name it Gemini?
No, thank goodness. They founded Lamasu. They've actually subsequently moved it overseas, and so it's no longer based in New Hampshire or the United States. And one of the reasons they did that was because they cannot do business with everyone in the world that they want to do business with. Case in point, Iran was who they mentioned. They were contacted by someone in Iran who wanted to buy a Bitcoin vending machine and place it in Iran.
Wow.
But they couldn't legally sell it to him under the stupid sanctions. Now, what is a Bitcoin vending machine likely to do for the people of Iran?
Liberate them.
Exactly.
Yeah, give them honest money.
And empower them to, in theory, rise up against the government, right? Like, maybe that could happen. It's certainly not something that's going to harm the people. It's something that's going to empower the people, and it's going to take power away from the state.
So that's just proof to me that what I was saying is true. They don't actually want to do whatever they're saying they want to do. They want to make people suffer.
Yep.
Just the average person. That's
because
so crazy.
They are crazy, power-mad sickos. The third point is that Biden's, the Pentagon's, and the CIA's Operation Mockingbird assets in the mainstream press just don't get or don't care about. U.S. sanctions imposed on Russia and other countries constitute a direct infringement on the liberty of the American people. Under the principles of liberty, people have the right to trade with whomever they want and to travel wherever they want. Those are fundamental natural God-given rights that no government, not even the U.S. government, can legitimately infringe. Yet that is precisely what U.S. sanctions do. They contribute to the destruction of our own rights and liberties at the hands of our own government.
Yeah. And, it's kind of interesting that the United States government, they say we're the land of the free, but gosh darn it, do they sure love telling us what we can and can't do, where we can and can't go. Like, I would love to try a Cuban cigar or take a swig of Cuban rum.
Right.
But I cannot. This was actually something Tom DeLay got in trouble for. He was in Canada, and he was someone took a picture of him smoking a Cuban cigar.
Wasn't he a politician?
And he was a politician. And the Treasury Department released a notice reminding all Americans that it is illegal to consume products made in Cuba because of the embargo, even if you're not on U.S. soil.
Wow.
The law.
Really?
Yes. What? So you cannot go to Canada and buy a Cuban cigar.
Does
and
that
smoke
still
it.
apply now that they are actually allowing people to travel to Cuba? Because those sanctions have been partially lifted.
I don't know, but back in the day,
that's how it was.
It was. But now that Castro and now that the Castro brothers are gone, why do we need to keep? To me, time, God, and death took care of the Castro brothers, and now who's running Cuba?
Another communist.
Okay.
I don't smoke cigarettes or cigars, but that just makes me want to go buy a Cuban cigar on the dark web.
Yeah, I guess you could probably get them there. That wouldn't surprise me. If you could.
I wouldn't really smoke a cigar.
So, a little bit more here. He says, thus we have the spectacle of U.S. national security establishment through its NATO machinations, making Russia one of its official enemies, then cornering Russia into invading Ukraine versus permitting U.S. missiles, bases, tanks, and troops to be established on Russia's border, and then using this manufactured crisis to further destroy the rights and liberties of the American citizenry. Our ancestors warned us about this type of thing. That's why they called into existence a limited government republic and rejected the national security state form of governmental structure under which we now live. That's why there was no Pentagon, military-industrial complex, CIA, or NSA for the first 150 years of American history. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson warned us against entangling alliances, such as NATO. John Quincy Adams, in his 1821 speech, In Search of Monsters to Destroy, explained the reasons for America's founding foreign policy of non-interventionism into the affairs and crises of foreign nations. We'll continue with, he's got a few more thoughts to share on the destructive power of sanctions against both the innocent people in Russia and the innocent people here in the United States. If you want to join the show, you can at 603-283-6160. How have sanctions affected you and your loved ones, whether they be here or elsewhere in the world? If you want to share your story, you can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Air raid sirens sounding again in Kiev tonight after Vladimir Putin insisted today that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is going according to plan. In an appearance on Russian state television and during a 90-minute phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron, he made it clear he has no plans to back down. Some Russians are making the decision to evacuate their country, fearful that President Putin will declare a state of emergency and crack down further on dissent. From FSN's Moscow bureau, Giles Gibson with more.
We've had Alexei Navalny, that well-known opposition activist. He's currently in prison, but he's put out a message through his lawyers onto social media calling for there to be daily protests, not just here in Russia, but also in Belarus and in countries around the world. So I think we are watching very carefully to see if that call from Alexei Navalny really drives more numbers, bigger numbers, to come out onto the streets of Russian cities as we head into the weekend.
Talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials today appear to have secured an agreement to create a humanitarian corridor that will allow civilians to leave Ukraine and medical supplies to arrive. White House officials say U.S. intelligence believes a Russian military convoy heading towards Kiev has been stalled by Ukrainian forces. But White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said American fighter jets will certainly not be attacking it.
One of the reasons the president pushed to expedite the approval and delivery of a security package over the weekend was to give them, the Ukrainians, more support, more equipment, more defensive weapons to utilize in this moment. We are not reconsidering or taking steps that would prompt a war between the United States and Russia.
The U.S. sanctioned 8 Russians with close ties to President Vladimir Putin today, including his Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. FSN's Nick Harper in our Washington bureau with the details.
Among those blacklisted is Russian billionaire Elisha Usmanov. Germany seized his $600 million yacht on Wednesday. Also sanctioned Dmitry Peskov, who, as the Kremlin spokesman, the Biden administration describes as a top purveyor of Putin's propaganda. The White House also announced visa restrictions for 19 oligarchs and 47 family members.
And the White House says President Biden has made no decision on whether to ban imports of Russian oil into the United States. Georgia and Moldova say they've applied to join the European Union in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And the Kremlin's main propaganda arm in the United States is shutting down. The production company behind TV network RT America has laid off most of its staff and says the move is permanent. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yeah!
Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We got updates on the Russia-Ukraine situation on the way. If we get the chance, we'll get into those. We've been following that pretty closely over the last couple of weeks. But also, something else that's been going on is the People's Convoy is winding its way closer and closer to Washington, D.C.
Uh-oh.
Now, earlier this week, you may recall, Bonnie, we played a video, and actually it was last week.
Oh, wait. March 1st passed.
Right.
Was that the People's Convoy that was supposed to get there March 1st?
There's a lot of confusion, and that's one of the things I wanted to clear up about this.
Okay.
Was last week we played a video from a guy who was leading what was called Freedom Convoy USA 2022. And he's based in Maryland. He's a governor candidate, an independent candidate for governor in Maryland.
And he owns a gym.
And he owns a gym, and he looks like he's a Fed, and it looks really suspicious what he was doing. But he, at some point, a few days into the People's Convoy, so there's Freedom Convoy 2022, which was supposed to happen in D.C., was supposed to end in D.C. on May 1st. And then there's the People's Convoy, which is supposed to end in D.C. on May 5th. Well, a few days into the People's Convoy, this other guy from Maryland announces, we're wrapping up the Freedom Convoy. It's melding into the People's Convoy. So he called it quits, basically, on the Freedom Convoy, but he said, come to D.C. on the 1st. I'll still be here. He's going to have he's got a permanent gathering he was going to have on the National Mall or something like that.
And just, give a speech?
And give, an open mic or speeches or whatever. There was video that came out from Ford Fisher, and this guy is a libertarian, voluntarist, anarchist news guy. He's like an independent journalist. He gets himself into some really sticky situations. He'll be up versus Antifa.
Where's he from?
The Proud Boys and stuff. I don't know where he's from. I think he's from like Boston or something like that. But he makes his way around. And anyway, he was in D.C., and he attended what was supposed to be this big protest. Wherever it was. I don't know if it was the National Mall or wherever it was. But he had a permit. This guy had a permit. This organizer had a permit for it. He was literally the only one there. There were a few people from the mainstream media, but as far as actual protest attendees, there was virtually no one.
I can't believe nobody fell for that Fed's trap.
Yeah.
I honestly can't believe that.
No one fell for it except for the media. Just the media was there with cameras just to record this guy literally speaking to an empty stage, an empty crowd. There was no one there.
I would be so
crazy.
afraid to go to that because they're just taking people from facial recognition technology who were at the crowd during January 6th and putting them in jail. So I would not go to that even if I didn't think the guy was a Fed.
Yeah, so that one completely fizzled. However, the People's Convoy is real. This thing is happening. It is rolling as we speak. They are on the final, I think, 2 or 3 legs of this trip tonight. They are currently in Indianapolis. So, I'm sorry, they departed Indianapolis earlier today. They will be arriving in Cambridge, Ohio tonight. Then they will be going to Hagerstown, Maryland on Friday to arrive in the D.C. Beltway area on Saturday. So this has been building for the last 10 days. They started this thing February 23rd. And it is an amazing thing that's coming together out there. There's different legs of this thing have been coming from around the country. So the one that started on the 23rd was in California, and they've been the sort of the main leg that's been going all the way across the country. But people started in Maine, I believe, 2 days ago, and New Hampshire, I believe, yesterday or something like that. So there's truckers coming from all over the place to converge in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and then eventually they're all going to come into D.C. simultaneously.
What do you think about it, TJ? Do you think that's a good idea?
I'm just thinking, is this going to turn into another Justin Trudeau versus the truckers? So is it going to be Biden, is going to be saying, I can't get my supply of Depends. These truckers need to keep the goods moving. And D.C. is a very tight cornered street. So I'm just imagining if they had even like 50 trucks doing what they were doing in Canada.
Some of them are saying they're not going to go into the city. They're going to stay on the Beltway and just clog that up or something. They have some sort of plan, and they're not being very clear about what exactly they're planning, which for obvious reasons.
I think that's worse than what they were doing in Canada, because in Canada they were mostly affecting the government and the people who are comfortable enough with the government to live on the same street as them.
Right.
So that's why, and they weren't completely blocking the roads, but
Well,
still.
and we don't know what their plan is. The one guy they interviewed who was talking about the Beltway, it wasn't clear as to what he intended to do exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out in the next couple of days. But what I wanted to say was, I've seen some of the footage that they've been posting from the drivers that are on this route, and almost every overpass, there are a ton of people. Like this whole way, from Arizona all the way to now. I'll just check in every day or every other day and just look at one of the videos, and just wherever they happen to be at that time, they go under an overpass, and there's always a ton of people on that overpass with, flags and trucks parked and people waving and everything. And now they've got images when they come into one of their nighttime stops. Somebody has a gigantic American flag, like the biggest American flag you could ever imagine. I don't know how many hundreds of people are able to stand underneath this American flag. But remember in elementary school, you had that parachute where you'd lift the parachute up and like the whole class would go under the parachute. Did you guys do this?
I did. Did
yes,
you?
Vaguely. Yeah.
Like every primary color.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Imagine that parachute, but a humongous American flag and 100 times larger.
Oh my God.
This thing is, I don't even know how you have a flag this large. It's incredible. I've seen the images of this in video of people like holding on to this flag at a truck stop last night.
I thought that it was up on a crane.
It may have been on a crane at some point, but
I don't know if we're talking about the same flag, but I saw a huge flag.
How big is it?
I don't know. I'm going to have to pull up another image of this and get, like, the trucks look small in comparison to this flag.
Oh, wow.
So it's just an incredibly large piece of cloth. So this thing's real, and there are what appear to be thousands of people that are at these truck stops every single night, supporters coming out. How many of them will finally be there on the end of this journey in Washington, D.C. remains to be seen. But we're definitely going to keep our eyes on this. They have a website. It's thepeoplesconvoy.org. You can go there. The Facebook group that they have is active. They're posting videos every single day of what's going on there. So check that out. Keep an eye on this. The mainstream media is probably ignoring still what's happening there, but at some point they're not going to be able to ignore this. TJ, you might be able to see the image of this flag, and you can see it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 trucks in width.
Yep.
That's a big flag, right? I don't know how big that is, but there's hundreds of people that were at this thing last night. So
God, that's the worst part about this. They're supposedly mad at the federal government, and they're just waving the federal government's giant flag.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bonnie. These are people who are still in love with the idea of the United States. They understand that the U.S. has fallen far from what its intentions were, as Jacob Hornberger points out, was supposed to be an independent nation that did not make entangling alliances with other countries. And that was what the intentions were for the United States. A couple more paragraphs here from Future Freedom Foundation about sanctions and what the original idea behind the U.S. was. An updated warning came in President Eisenhower's farewell address, where he pointed out that the military-industrial complex posed a grave threat to the freedom and democratic processes of the American people. His warning was followed by that of President Kennedy, the last president who was willing to stand up against the overwhelming power of the national security establishment. His warning was followed by that of President Truman, who 30 days after JFK was killed, pointed out the CIA had become a sinister force in American life. He says it's time for Americans to do some serious soul-searching. The question should not be what to do about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The big question to be discussed and debated should instead be, should America restore its founding systems of a limited government republic and a non-interventionist foreign policy and get America back on the road toward liberty, peace, prosperity, and harmony with the people of the world? Well, of course they should, but they will never do that. The politicians in D.C. are crazy psychopaths, and the idea that we're going to be able to just vote them out seems pretty unlikely. There's more coming up, and you can join us, share your thoughts on Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
If you're looking for work, or even if you're not, here's an innocent mistake you really want to avoid. Never return calls before listening to your voicemail. Your wireless phone sends calls you didn't answer into voicemail, and it shows you phone numbers for calls you missed. Important, don't call back callers you missed until you have first listened to your messages. Otherwise, you frustrate people who bothered to leave messages by asking them to repeat a message they just left as your voicemail greeting instructed them to. If you're a job applicant, this alone could be a deal killer. And even if you're not, there are few things you can convey to someone that are as fundamentally maddening as, "I didn't hear you." With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. For more tips for job seekers and everyone else, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 as the People's Convoy is getting closer. They're 2 days away now from their destination, which is the Beltway outside of Washington, D.C. I was just looking it up. I pulled up online, how wide is a semi-truck?
About 10 feet.
Yeah, so it says 8.5 feet wide on average, and then obviously they're parked next to one another in a row here in this picture I was describing with this humongous American flag and, I don't know, 1,000+ people. And there's 9 semi-trucks lined up right next to one another. That's the width of this flag. So
they're 90 feet? It's 90 feet long?
No, that would be on the low side. So let's just estimate, 10 or 11 feet per truck, and you're talking about a 100-foot-long flag, basically. That's a humongous flag. How do you buy something like that? That thing has got to be a huge thing.
From China.
Yeah, it probably came from China. So you can bring up anything you want here. We're going to go to your calls and thoughts. And then coming up, Bonnie, your story about the pig controversy going on in New York State. But first, Eamon is on the line calling from New Jersey. You're on Free Talk Live watching us on Twitch. Go ahead, Eamon.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, what's on your mind?
So I was just calling in. It's a little off topic, but
it's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want, so there's never an off topic.
Yeah, I'm interested in. I've never done this before. I kind of was interested in living in a trailer park or getting like a Winnebago or something like that. And I'm sure you probably know people that do that sort of thing. But I'm at a loss. I'm having a lot of difficulty finding a place like that, or how to go through that process.
Something like vanlife.com or something where because I know there's a huge, they actually made a movie. It was called Nomad's Land or something, where they actually made a movie about these people who just, they work at the Amazon warehouses, but they don't have any permanent home. They sleep in their vehicles and they go from Amazon warehouse to Amazon warehouse to pick up labor.
Well, I have some questions. I mean, I personally have never lived in a trailer park, but I've had friends who have done that. So, I mean, I have some ancillary experience in this area. I guess some important questions are, what you've described so far, Eamon, are two very different lifestyles, right? There's the RVer lifestyle of being mobile and being able to pick up in a moment and go anywhere else that you can drive to and then set down there. And then there's the trailer park lifestyle of those things aren't very mobile. I mean, they're called mobile homes, but some of those things, once you set them down for a while, you try to move them, they're not going to go anywhere. They're rusted or there's problems. So the question is, if you want to find a trailer in a trailer park, there's plenty of those out there, and many of them are for sale for very, very cheap. But then you have to remember you're going to pay lot rent, which basically you're paying the property taxes, and you're paying a rental fee to the trailer park itself. It comes with all kinds of rules, park rules and nosy neighbors, and there's all kinds of downsides to living in a trailer park.
That's true.
Whereas, again, the RV lifestyle, you've got the upkeep on the RV. Obviously, you got to keep it in good shape, keep it running, but it can take you anywhere. So those are two completely different kind of lifestyles.
Yeah, I guess
that makes sense.
So that's something you want to think
you
about.
Could probably live in a trailer park with an RV.
I don't know. I guess it would depend on the trailer park's rules. I mean, some might allow that, others may not.
I'm not sure if the hookups are all the same.
I don't know enough about hookups.
I have no idea, but I'm just saying.
I can't speak to that. There's also another thing that's kind of popular these days, and I know that some of our hosts are critical of it, and others think it's a cool idea. There's the quote-unquote tiny homes.
I knew you were going to say that.
And some people, so I have no personal opinion about the tiny home, but
I like them.
But from what I've heard, and I believe it's Conan that's done a lot of research into these things. Again, the tiny home is made to sound as though it's this mobile thing, but not so much from what I understand. Many of these things are really more designed to move rarely, if ever. So keep that in mind if you're looking at that. And then as far as RVs are concerned, there's
I want an Airstream.
There's Airstream, so there's the different choices, right? You've got the full-on big-ass RV that folds out into a larger thing once you park it and costs $200,000.
And there are ones you pull.
And there's the towable little guys, or there's the ones that you can sit on the back of a truck bed.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah, I considered living in a van because you can put a mattress in the back and have a little electrical and an auxiliary power unit, provide AC and heat during the winter and the summer.
Downside there is you don't have a bathroom.
Yeah, but there are plenty of bathrooms on the interstate, or wherever you're traveling.
True, and truck stops,
or
whatever. So yeah, you really have to consider what level of comfort are you willing to give up, or what level of comfort you want to have. how much you want to spend, and what kind of lifestyle you want, because there's all of these options. Yeah.
And if you want to live in a trailer park, you might not be able to get as much land and be able to do as much on your land as you want as if you had a RV and could go like anywhere.
Yeah, because on an RV, you could buy your own piece of property somewhere as large as you
I guess you
want
could
it
do
to
that
be.
with a trailer too, but not if you bought it in a park with
the
like
park
an HOA.
If I were going to live in a manufactured home, I would not want to live in a trailer park, just because everything I've ever heard from people that have lived in trailer parks, it's a nightmare. You have some of the worst neighbors, some of the nosiest, busybody, neighborhood Nazi types in the world living in trailer parks.
Yeah, I know that when I lived in a trailer park when I first moved back to Texas in 2018, that they always had a homeowners association, but I wasn't someone who could go to one, only like my roommate who owned the trailer. And it was like always fights and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Trashy. Very trashy. So, I don't know. Did we answer your question at all?
Did we give you some good advice, hopefully?
Yeah, that is pretty good advice. Well, see, I've never actually, I don't know anybody myself that's ever lived that. But I love going to like music festivals, and I love the whole like living in a tent or living in like one of those communities like that.
You should build a yurt or a dome.
If you love music festivals, you're going to want to have something mobile.
Oh, that's just... did you mean you want to travel from music festival to music festival, or just you like that feel?
I like the feel of living in like a tiny little house, but living in close proximity to like a bunch of people and all of that.
We have friends that have dome houses and friends that have a yurt.
Those aren't particularly mobile. Dome houses and yurts are, cool for the people that are into them.
Yeah, but he said he's not really like looking to be mobile. He just likes the feel of like living among. Maybe you can find people.
You like going to music festivals, though. You said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you like going to music festivals, just make it easy on yourself and have some sort of a mobile
van.
Not necessarily
or a
bus,
a school bus.
People like doing the refurbs of school buses. Yeah.
My friend Colin, he bought a motor coach bus, and he put in a heating element. It has a shower. It has a pool.
And he made it pretty.
Yeah, it's
nice.
It
looks nice.
It's nice.
All I need to be happy in that situation is like a reliable like electricity and like Wi-Fi.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Endless entertainment.
The Starlink thing is shipping. We got one coming to the studio actually next week. I don't know if it's going to work here because there might be too much obstructions around. But for people for people that live on the road, this is going to take satellite internet to the next level.
What is it, Ian?
It's the Elon Musk. The Tesla guy. He's got his SpaceX company, and they've come up with these low Earth orbit satellites. There's a ton of them. I don't know how many thousands of them they have floating up there. But basically, the problem with satellite internet has always been it's been incredibly slow compared to, say, a cable modem or something like that. But now the speeds are way better because the latency is better. They're closer to you, right? Like previously, satellite internet, you were connecting to a satellite way out there, like with all the rather regular big satellites. And these are very small, like micro satellite things that are just floating all over the place.
Like the size of a toaster or something
like that. And so the fact that there's a ton of them and they're so much closer to you, that lowers the latency, which is also a problem with satellites. It's very, very slow communications. Lowers the latency, increases the speed, and people have been getting some incredible speed tests out of this new service, and it's only $100 a month. So you got to spend like $500 to get the install package and the dish, but you think about what you pay for a high-end cable modem package, you're going to be paying about $100 a month or something for that. So to be able to have an RV or something where you can just sit down anywhere and receive satellite signal for internet, that's pretty amazing. Now, I have heard that they made it's called Starlink. Now, I can't speak. I'm not an investor or anything like that. I can't speak to the quality of it. I have not actually tested it myself, but within the next month or two, I probably will have an opinion about it. Hopefully I can find a spot on this property that'll actually have enough signal, because we've got trees here, and that makes things difficult. So if you're in a wooded area, it will be useless. But if you're in an open RV field or something like that, then you'd be good to go, or a parking lot or whatever. You should be all set. Thank you, Eamon. Let us know how this works out for you, what you decide to do, if you feel like checking back in with us. Although I did hear a rumor that they may have an RVers package that costs more. You may have to stay in one location with the home package. Anyway, more coming up. Hour 3's on the way. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level, and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Ukraine's foreign minister has said on Twitter that the Russian army is firing from all sides on a large nuclear power complex and that a fire had broken out. Here's retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis.
I'm sure that this was intentional, so it's a little surprising to me, I have to say. I mean, I can understand from a military perspective why they would want to control the electricity, but a nuclear power station and then attacking it like this is tremendously risky.
Russian forces continue to advance in Ukraine, despite resistance from the Ukrainian military as well as civilians. According to the United Nations, more than 1 million Ukrainians have fled for neighboring countries since the fighting began just over a week ago. A U.S. jury has found a former Kentucky police officer not guilty of charges relating to the death of Breonna Taylor. She was killed during a botched raid on her home in March of 2020. FSN's Nick Harper reports.
Police were executing a no-knock warrant on Breonna Taylor's home, searching for her boyfriend Kenneth Walker on drugs charges. As the officers didn't announce themselves and thinking they were intruders, Walker started shooting. The 3 officers returned fire, killing Taylor. None of them was charged with her death, but one of the officers, Brett Hankinson, stood trial on wanton endangerment charges, as the bullets he fired hit a neighbouring house. During the trial, Hankinson defended himself.
What were your feelings about this entire incident?
Tragedy. It's something that didn't have to happen. She didn't need to die that night.
Taylor's killing, along with the murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery's, sparked nationwide protests over the treatment of black citizens.
It was a choppy session on Wall Street Thursday as investors continue to assess developments in Ukraine. Energy prices have soared in recent days, but they have pulled back a fraction. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
President Biden reiterated on Thursday that sanctions on Russia aim to maximize the impact on his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin and minimize the harm on the US and its allies. Those comments did little to ease concerns on Wall Street over the impact Russia's invasion on Ukraine and retaliatory sanctions will have on global markets, especially the energy sector. This week, West Texas Intermediate oil futures hit its highest level since 2014, but ticked down slightly Thursday to trade below $110 per barrel. The US markets gave up earlier gains Thursday to end the session in the red. The Dow fell 0.3%, the S&P 0.5%, and the Nasdaq 1.6%.
The Kremlin's main propaganda arm in the United States is shutting down. The production company behind American-originated programming on television network RT has laid off most of its staff and says the move is permanent. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, what Russians are being told about events in Ukraine. The story being spun by the Kremlin to Russia's population is largely fictional, but the result of Vladimir Putin's relentless 20-year campaign to shut down or expropriate media outlets that fail to hew to the Kremlin's propaganda. Dominic Waghorn, International Affairs Editor for Sky News, is on special assignment in Moscow.
The official media is still saying this is effectively a limited special military operation designed to liberate the East to help those Ukrainians who are Russian separatists or Russian-speaking, who they say have been treated terribly for the last 8 years. And so the focus is on what look like contrived pictures of Russian troops being welcomed as liberators, pictures of Ukrainians hunkering down in shelters. And there's not much mention of the much larger scale multi-front operation that's happening in the rest of Ukraine. I think if you're a better connected, better educated Russian, then you've got access to the internet. You are seeing a bigger picture, and that's why I think we're seeing younger, more metropolitan people turning out to protest.
One influential voice silenced this week by the Kremlin, Echo Moskvy, the country's leading independent radio station. It was last closed down during the attempted coup against Mikhail Gorbachev in August 1991. It survived that, only to face Putin's action this week. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Ukraine's foreign minister says that the Russian army was firing from all sides on a nuclear power complex and that a fire has broken out. A U.S. jury finds a former police officer not guilty of charges relating to the death of black woman Breonna Taylor. And a choppy session on Wall Street as investors continue to assess developments in Ukraine. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
As of today, the average cost of a pack of cigarettes has gone up to 2 hand jobs and a stick of beef jerky. For more, we go now to Onion News Network prison economics expert Hal Rogan.
The prison economy runs on cigarettes. They're involved in every economic transaction at some stage, from contract killings to naked woman picture acquisition.
Right.
That's why we've got shampoo at 6 batteries. We've got tattoos at 50 commissary stamps.
Now, for what it's really like out there in the market, let's check in with major cigarette trader Big Dap Ramirez. Big Dap, nice to see you again.
Thanks, Rick. Good to see you. What's happening, Hal?
How's it going, Big Dap?
Now, it's obviously a boom time for cigarettes right now.
I'm getting a lot of hand
But with
jobs.
prices this high, analysis shows you're going to be seeing a drop-off in real sales soon as consumers turn to smoking grass fajos.
Look, we've been through this before. The market teaches us not to panic. But if I learn anything in this game, it's that a wife or girlfriend will pass off a few decks in the boneyard. Supply will normalize, and we'll see cigarettes returning to a single hand job or less.
Big Dap, best of luck to you. We'll keep checking in on the story with Hal throughout the day.
Thanks, Rick.
Moving on to some happier news. In Atlanta today, 2 snitches were beaten to death.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live phones are open. You can join the show as we launch here into the third hour of the program. The number for you is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether you want to talk about sanctions and how it hurts the average person, or whatever happens to be on your mind. That's one of the things we've discussed so far. But coming up, we're going to get into the pig story out of New York State, where a man is trying to keep his pig against state bureaucrats that want to take it away from him. And that's on the way here tonight. With you tonight, it is Ian, TJ the Spy,
and Bonnie.
Let's go to the phones. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. We're going first to northern Georgia, where Stephen is on the line. Stephen, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, so I'm not here to debate you or talk about how the cops suck tonight. It's a little different. So the SWIFT banking system recently banned Russia, and Russia has like their own new system, and so there's a threat that they could dump U.S. dollars. And if the U.S. dollar gets dumped, then U.S. Fed Reserve notes become worthless. Well, more worthless than they already are. So that pushes me into an interest of crypto. My question is, what is crypto backed by? Like, we say it has a value of X, but where does that value come from?
That's actually a very good question. So first of all, I will illuminate and say Bitcoin is, at its base, mathematical. It's a solution to a mathematical equation. That's all it is. Your private key, it's a 256-bit integer that that allows you to sign transactions and spend your Bitcoin. But the true answer is, like, why is it what is it worth? It comes strictly because that's what people are willing to pay for it. There's no government forcing people to buy Bitcoin. Nobody's being forced to use Bitcoin. There's just a market clearing price that if you want to buy one Bitcoin right now, it's going to set you back about $40,000.
Yeah, about $41,000 today, which is down from $44 a couple days ago.
It's
on sale.
But just for any beginners listening, you can still buy a piece of one Bitcoin.
That's a really important point, Bonnie, and a lot of people just presume, well, I'm out of this market. I can't afford $41,000. So, but what you can do is you can get a 1% of a Bitcoin, or less than 1% of a Bitcoin if you want to.
You can get $10 worth, $5 worth.
The other thing I'll point out is that cryptocurrencies have...
So what it sounds like y'all are saying is its perception, its value is perception based.
Its value is what?
Its value comes from perception.
Well,
yeah, that's, I mean, it true, because when Bitcoin first started, it was perceived to have no value. So it was like a penny a Bitcoin, because people were like, why? Who accepts Bitcoin? Why would anybody want Bitcoin? We already have cash.
Well, there's also scarcity. Can you explain that to him? Because even gold, if you just come down to it, is valued based on its...
So Bitcoin, it's an honest money because there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins ever in existence.
And there's about 19 of them right now.
Right now that are in circulation. And that's designed so that less and less Bitcoin gets issued each year, so it's a deflationary currency, unlike the U.S. dollar where we print more and more dollars each year. And
the
federal government does, buying through the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, if you want to be technical. But the dollar gets its value by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, which is basically pretty language, which means it's backed by nothing. There's nothing backing the U.S. dollar other than it's a fiat.
It's all perception in that case.
It's perception in that case. So what people are willing to pay for goods is totally perception based. Like, what you're willing to pay for something depends on a whole bunch of factors.
Well, so one of the things that scares me about the current U.S. currency system is, one, it's controlled by the Fed, and the Fed is a private company, and the private company has no vested stake in my well-being. The other thing that concerns me about this is, as of right now, the U.S. Fed Reserve note is actually a petroleum note, right? It's backed by petro.
Well, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's countries like Saudi Arabia, they do trade in the dollar. They sell oil, and they will accept dollars. But
backed by is just a different term.
When you say backed, so for example, the dollar used to be backed by gold, meaning you could take a $20 bill into any bank and they would give you 1 ounce of gold. That was the definition of a dollar, was 1/20th an ounce of gold. Well, now, ever since Nixon, we're off the gold standard, so a dollar is worth whatever people think it's worth.
And they keep on printing more and more, which is why you're seeing prices going up all over the place. The other thing, if you don't like the fact that the Federal Reserve is a private company, and in my opinion, it wouldn't matter if they were a government agency or a private company, they'd still be evil. But one thing you should know is Bitcoin is not a private company. What Bitcoin is it is computer code that was released to the world by an anonymous person or persons calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009, so 13 years ago. It was released open source to the rest of the world, so anyone who knows programming can read through the code and they can verify that it's honest and that there's no backdoors.
And people have tried to hack it,
and
it's never been hacked.
And the other thing that I think is important to point out here, its value is certainly based on the perception of people, but it's also the reason why people perceive it as value isn't just because, oh, this is cool. No, it's because Bitcoin does what it says it's going to do, which is allows people to transfer value from one person to another across an entire planet, if necessary, in a matter of a moment. And it does it securely, and it does it in a way that basically cannot be hacked, and that is worth something. What that something is worth is, again, up to the market.
Yes. I mean, Bitcoin has done something amazing for money, and that is it's made the cost to store money practically zero. All you need is a thumb drive, and you can store your wallet on a thumb drive or your phone. So
or in your brain.
Instead of having to build a safe or a bank vault to store all your gold and silver or your cash, or
and
whatever,
possibly have it seized by a criminal
stolen,
enterprise.
With Bitcoin, it's protected by cryptographic mathematics, so the government can't seize it without your password. If you don't give them your private key, they can't take your Bitcoin.
And this is why they hate it.
And the second thing is no government controls it. It's all math, and it's voluntary, so nobody's being forced at gunpoint. That's the thing. In the United States, if I run a business, I am required to accept U.S. dollars by law.
That's actually, from what I understand, not true.
Oh, really? Because it says this debt is legal for all debts. Public and
all
private.
Debts. If you're just selling a product, that's not.
Yeah, I guess
debt.
you could do barter. So, or you could use gold backs or something.
Just
else,
selling it. Yeah. Remember, our friends Derek and Steven had the Bitcoin store. They had what they call the Bitcoin shop.
Oh yeah, and they refused to accept payment in dollars.
Correct.
They only accepted payment in Bitcoin.
Correct. But they also didn't give anyone debts either.
And one last thing I'll say about Bitcoin. It allows me to send money to anybody with a phone anywhere in the world instantly for like 20 cents. So, you know, if I wanted to send money to you, just an average listener, and you would have to give me all kinds of private information. I'd have to send you a check, maybe mail you a payment, send my gold to you, a physical address. With Bitcoin, you could just give me a QR code or give me a line of letters, and I can send money to that address. There's no danger in doing that. So
and no one can tell you can't do it. That's one of the most important aspects. There's no middleman. There's no banker sitting in between you and the recipient who is going to ask you a bunch of questions.
And all of these are good points, but I'd also like to point out that so far we've been only talking about Bitcoin. Other cryptocurrencies are valued for like the
same
use
reason.
case.
So like there's Litecoin, there's Dash, there's Monero, there's all these other cryptocurrencies, and they're also competing against Bitcoin.
Yep, that's true.
Because Bitcoin, its Achilles heel is it can only handle 7 transactions a second. The network can.
Yeah.
So there are other networks like Dash and Monero, Stellar, that can handle much greater volumes of transactions, and I think those might actually be used, like big corporations, Targets, Googles. I think they're going to be using other cryptos besides Bitcoin, but I still see a very bright future for Bitcoin.
Stephen, did we answer your question?
A little bit, yeah. So, and I'll say something, and maybe y'all can explain this a little bit better.
I'll tell you what, hang on. Hold that thought. We'll continue back here more with Stephen in northern Georgia. He's got questions about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, which is an amazing technology that is changing the face of finance across the planet. And it's getting into the news recently because it helped out with the freedom truckers in the convoy in Canada big time.
And Ukrainians now.
The banking system had cracked down. It's helping out with the people in Ukraine and Russia as well. Unfortunately, the governments are starting to get into it, which is not something I think Satoshi Nakamoto foresaw happening, but it's happening. And it is an indicator that it's really hitting the big time. More coming up.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
The reason why I reject violence, and part of that is there's a humility in it, and that you have to acknowledge that I may not be right. You know, I want to have an open discussion with people. Let's talk this stuff out. I'm not going to impose my views on you with violence, because I will not presume to be so right that I'm just going to force my views on you.
In addition, if your views are so valid and so great, then you shouldn't have to force them on anybody. Then you should be able to persuade folks.
Right. This is truly the acid test of a good idea. If it's a good idea to educate everybody, then you should be able to do it in a free market. If it's a good idea
without force,
right? Without
that's
force.
If you've got enough persuasive ability to convince a majority of people to vote to violently fund something, you've got enough potential to motivate that many people to contribute toward it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones are open. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
TJ the Spy. I'm sorry there.
That's all right.
And Bonnie.
And also want to let you know that Bitcoin.com is our sponsor here on Free Talk Live. If you want to learn some of the basics, I mean, we've touched on a lot of it here, but we didn't get into the details on why decentralization matters or how a blockchain works. If you want to get into some of the details on understanding Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and some of the cryptocurrency concepts, get over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page, and you'll find some introductory videos there that you can dig into. One of them, the first one's as short as 3 minutes. So head over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started. Now, if you're not brand new to crypto and you want to get the latest news headlines, they've got those over on their news site at news.bitcoin.com. Let's bring Stephen back in Tennessee. Stephen, you had another point or question that you wanted to bring up here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so side point real quick. First time I heard about Bitcoin was in 2012. I just looked something up. At the end of 2012, one Bitcoin was $13.45.
Oh man,
so if you bought
the good old days.
I have an old Navy buddy that bought 100 Bitcoin, and I just realized I need to call him and let him know how much I love him. I think he's rich now. But no, so I wholeheartedly believe, and if you think I'm crazy, so be it, that there's a very real possibility that the economic and the electronic system in the United States is a massive target by either internal evil powers or external evil powers. And so I'm solidifying a lot of that stuff in valuables that are easily tradable. Also, I'm looking at this crypto stuff. How easy is it for these guys? Y'all said it's never been hacked. That's a big claim.
So it's there have been people who've had their wallets hacked, like they accidentally gave away their password, or they've had their machines infected with malware and they typed their password, but it's never been hacked mathematically. So the math that underpins Bitcoin is sound.
The network itself is not hacked. There's not somebody out there able to fake a transaction or anything like that because of the decentralized nature of this. It is distributed and decentralized. So the Bitcoin blockchain is, in the shortest version of the explanation, is it's essentially a distributed ledger. It's a ledger that exists. It's a public ledger, so anyone can look at it, and it exists in, I believe, as many as 15,000 locations. I saw an updated number on it. It used to be like 10 or 11,000. Recently, they hit 15,000 full nodes are operating on the Bitcoin network.
And all they do is prove that mathematical equation over and over again.
Those are the miners, I think.
The miners. What they do is they distribute the transaction list and the blockchain to everybody else. So when you start your Bitcoin client for the first time, if you're not using a light wallet, so if you're using the full thing where you have maximum privacy with Bitcoin, that go to Bitcoin, wherever you get that Bitcoin Standard Core, Bitcoin QT program from, crud.
Well, you use the term maximum privacy, which you don't really have privacy with Bitcoin.
There's all kinds of things. Like I say privacy loosely there. Monero's my choice for privacy coins.
If you want true privacy, you've got to go to Monero. It's probably the best bet of all the privacy coins right now. But there are competitors to Monero. A lot of people in the Liberty movement like Pirate Chain.
But you can still have Bitcoin be more private than the U.S. dollar because you can't have a private U.S. dollar unless it's cash. But as far as Bitcoin, you don't have to put your name on a wallet.
That much is true. If you create a new Bitcoin wallet from and don't tell anyone that you have it, and you've got mining rewards that are being put into it, that's brand new Bitcoins in a brand new wallet. And as long as you don't tell anyone it's yours,
or if you did, you might lose it in a boating accident.
Yeah, that is so. There's a pseudonymous aspect of Bitcoin. If you take enough steps, you might be able to preclude people from finding out that it's your Bitcoin. But if you
can just use Monero instead.
But if you associate it with your own personal wallet, if you say, "Hey, this is my wallet. I'm so and so. Here's my wallet," then anyone in the world can look at your balance and see where it goes.
And you can actually do that, like on Free Keen. You can actually go to the donation addresses for freekeen.com and see how much money Free Keen has gotten from the various members over the years.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen, for the call tonight. Hope that helps you with some of your questions. Feel free to call another time if you've got more. Let's go to Marek. He's calling us from Poland, where, what is it, 3 in the morning right now? 4 in the morning? What time is it where you are?
Yeah. 3:30 at the moment.
Wow.
I'm going to the border with Ukraine to pick up some refugees.
Wow, okay.
And the situation is very dynamic here. Overall, through this week, I believe there was 500,000 people that arrived in Poland, and the Polish people really helped. They drive as I do to the border. They take people. They provide housing, and I can tell you that as a libertarian, this is very building for me. Because I see people can help each other without any government.
Nice.
And now, is the government in Poland getting in the way of any of the refugees, or are they actually allowing people to come over without a ton of paperwork and hoop jumping? Is there a process, and what's it like?
Yeah, so I would say it's pretty easy now. So they removed a lot of restrictions, including, by the way, the quarantine and the COVID passport. You don't need that at all now.
Oh, good.
For the Ukrainians. They just need a stamp or a passport, any kind of identification. And also for the kids, because the younger kids, they don't have any documents. So they are letting them through with the parents. So it's pretty easy.
What if you don't have a passport? What if you just have like a Ukrainian ID card or a driver's license?
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. And even if you don't have it, it's probably a longer way to identify yourself, but it's possible. So if you know when they need it, they can definitely loosen some restrictions if they want.
Do you know,
but-
is there some sort of path to permanency for these people? Are they going to be able to stay in Poland as long as they want, or are they going to have to go back to Ukraine at some point in the future? What's that look like for them?
Yeah, so overall, during the last years, a lot of Ukrainian people came to Poland and they are working here because the war, as you heard, started in Donbass in 2014. So there was a draft, so people came not to be going to military, and also, because of the economic reasons, Poland is way better at the moment because we didn't have this Russian influence for 30 years now, and they are just starting to, try to liberate from the Russian influence as of now. So they have more economic position. But anyway, there is a lot of people working in Poland. There is a lot of people. I have some tenants from Poland renting a flat. So there were many people here. And if you go, if after 2 years or so, if you go through a lot of hoops, you can become something like a citizen, maybe not full citizenship.
Like a permanent resident?
Wait, so you said you have tenants from Poland? Yeah. Did you mean from Ukraine?
From Ukraine, sorry. Yeah, they are coming from Ukraine. They rent flats. And
Marek, wow. I know it's late. It sounds like you're on the road. Can you stay with us for more questions, or do you have to run?
Sure.
Okay, great. More with Marek here, because I definitely have more questions for him. If you want to weigh in, you can join us here as well at 603-283-6160. He's heading to the border as we speak.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Which is amazing, and we'll hear more from him coming up in moments. This is Free Talk Live.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa. Hey.
Who do you think you are?
Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't going to make it.
Wait a minute.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me?
Because you scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Ukraine's foreign minister has said on Twitter that the Russian army is firing from all sides on a large nuclear power complex and that a fire had broken out. Here's retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis.
I'm sure that this was intentional, so it's a little surprising to me, I have to say. I mean, I can understand from a military perspective why they would want to control the electricity, but a nuclear power station and then attacking it like this is tremendously risky.
Russian forces continue to advance in Ukraine, despite resistance from the Ukrainian military as well as civilians. According to the United Nations, more than 1 million Ukrainians have fled for neighboring countries since the fighting began just over a week ago. A U.S. jury has found a former Kentucky police officer not guilty of charges relating to the death of Breonna Taylor. She was killed during a botched raid on her home in March of 2020. FSN's Nick Harper reports.
Police were executing a no-knock warrant on Breonna Taylor's home, searching for her boyfriend Kenneth Walker on drugs charges. As the officers didn't announce themselves and thinking they were intruders, Walker started shooting. The 3 officers returned fire, killing Taylor. None of them was charged with her death, but one of the officers, Brett Hankinson, stood trial on wanton endangerment charges, as the bullets he fired hit a neighbouring house. During the trial, Hankinson defended himself.
What were your feelings about this entire incident?
Tragedy. It's something that didn't have to happen. She didn't need to die that night.
Taylor's killing, along with the murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery's, sparked nationwide protests over the treatment of black citizens.
It was a choppy session on Wall Street Thursday as investors continue to assess developments in Ukraine. Energy prices have soared in recent days, but they have pulled back a fraction. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
President Biden reiterated on Thursday that sanctions on Russia aim to maximize the impact on his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin and minimize the harm on the US and its allies. Those comments did little to ease concerns on Wall Street over the impact Russia's invasion on Ukraine and retaliatory sanctions will have on global markets, especially the energy sector. This week, West Texas Intermediate oil futures hit its highest level since 2014, but ticked down slightly Thursday to trade below $110 per barrel. The US markets gave up earlier gains Thursday to end the session in the red. The Dow fell 0.3%, the S&P 0.5%, and the Nasdaq 1.6%.
The Kremlin's main propaganda arm in the United States is shutting down. The production company behind American-originated programming on television network RT has laid off most of its staff and says the move is permanent. From bureaus worldwide, this is
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, phones open if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. We've got plenty of time for you if you want to jump in here. On the phone with Marek, who is in Poland, and he's calling from a Polish phone number, got the right country code and everything. He's on the road right now, heading to the border. He says he's been assisting with helping refugees from Ukraine cross into Poland, where they are welcome, apparently. The Polish government is not standing in the way. They're making it relatively easy, all things considered. Normally, it's fairly difficult to immigrate into most places, but in this case, they are loosening restrictions, basically.
Including COVID restrictions.
Yes, thank goodness, because we had heard originally, like last week, that they were telling people, oh, no, you can't come in unless you got the vaccine passport.
Poland?
I believe that was the story about Poland. Marek, weren't they saying that really early on, and didn't they change that?
Yeah, so like few weeks ago, you would have to have the vaccination or take the test prior to coming, and if not, then you got on the quarantine. But that's changed for everyone now, but specifically for the Ukrainians, no restriction, no test required.
Yeah, as well, it's good timing that the COVID just happened to wrap up right in time for the war.
Well, he says, he says not for Polish people.
Nothing on the news anymore.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Not for Polish people? Oh, Bonnie says you said not for Polish people, so Polish people still have to have the passport?
No. We didn't get to the point where you had to have passport. There were some small restrictions, like limited number of people without the passport in cinema or something, but no one was really taking that into account.
Okay, good.
Nice.
Oh, plus in Ukraine, I've seen numbers that only 35% have been vaccinated in Ukraine. What's the obedience rate there in Poland? How many people got the shot?
I would say 56, 57%, something around that.
It's about half. So let's talk more about rescuing these Ukrainians from the border. You're heading there right now. It's the middle of the night. This is, I presume, this is not your first trip down there?
Yes, actually, I went on Saturday. That was very fresh. There was a lot of chaos. No one knew how many people were, and actually, just the turnaround was so great that I was waiting like 4 hours outside. It was freezing cold. And I wasn't able to pick up anyone because there were so many people willing to help, to give free rides, to give housing, that everyone was strictly going to someone to their home.
So what is it like? You just go to the border, like one of the border crossings, and just randomly, say, "Hey, I got some open seats. Come on over." Like, how is this going to go? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, that's how it was in the past. Now it's more like organized. So there are some Facebook groups, some WhatsApp groups where you can say, I can go, and there's some people saying, I need a ride or whatever. And actually, the most critical, I have to say, is some people are going to the Ukrainian side, risking going into war, actually, traveling even like 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers into the Ukraine, to pick up some people. So there are some brave Polish people doing that.
Wow. Now, is it all women and children, or because we'd heard that the Ukrainian government is prohibiting men between ages 18 and 60 from leaving the country?
That's correct. So if you're a man and you are between this age, you are not able to cross the border, and I don't think they are forcing them to go to military. They're just saying you cannot cross the border. And actually, I know a lot of people, from, like I said, my friends and tenants and all of those people from Ukraine. There's a lot of people going deliberately to Ukraine to fight. And once they get through, they cannot go back. So it's a one-way trip at the moment.
So just to clarify, you're saying Polish people who are going to Ukraine to fight?
No. There are a few, but most of it I'm talking about Ukrainian people.
Ukrainians who were living in Poland, gone back.
Yes, correct. And Polish people, they can go back. So it's different. So that's why Polish people go to pick up people, children and women, because they can go back. So a lot of people from Poland are doing that.
I've heard that they're also turning away trans women. They won't let them cross the border.
I don't think. I never heard about that. There are some rumors. You have to also know that Russian is really strongly playing the propaganda in the social media. They want to try to say, Polish people are not really saying welcome to refugees. They are trying to, get some anger between us.
Okay, well, I would believe it was propaganda. That's just what I heard.
There's propaganda on both sides. I mean, this is basically a propaganda war. Marek, what else did you want to share about your experiences so far?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, as a libertarian, I really see this clearly now, how one person with a lot of power, I'm talking about Putin, can destroy so many lives, and how, on the other side, people that are just spontaneously answering the call of him that can help each other, which gives you the idea that really, we don't really need those governments, and we really cannot get people into such power as Putin has, that he can get a war out of nowhere and, have such influence. We really need to stop them from gaining power. That's my take, I guess.
Yeah, governments on both sides are definitely bad news. I mean, Putin's bad, but so is the Ukrainian government.
Too many
as well.
people have too much power.
So, just one more thing. Just wanted to let you know, I visited actually Kiev, and we met Ian like 8 years ago, and I'm planning to come again to visit Free State.
So cool. I thought the name sounded familiar. Very cool, Marek. Thank you for the call tonight. Good luck.
Doza Virginia po Virginia.
What does that mean?
Goodbye and good luck. I mean my pronunciation.
Is that in Polish?
Yeah, should be. Right. Did I get it right, Marek? Doza Virginia po Virginia.
Powodzenia, I guess is the right word.
Nice.
Yes, goodbye and good luck.
Powodzenia.
Thank you, Marek. Have a great night. Drive safe out there, and good luck. Thanks for the call tonight. Interesting story. Let's go to Sarah. She's on the line in New Mexico. Sarah.
Yes. I just been hearing that, the Bulgaria is north of Ukraine, right? So they've been shooting off missiles from that country, right?
Bulgaria?
You're talking
do you mean
about
Belarus? Yeah, Belarus.
Yeah. I got it all confused. Belarus. So what I've been hearing is that there's men, I guess they must be communists, that want to join with the Russians and come down and attack Ukraine. So the only reason that they're trying to put on sanctions against Belarus, so they prevent that. So my whole point is that there's still a lot of communists in those former Soviet bloc countries that want to join back with Russia, and I do support that guy that called in the soldier. He says that most of the Russians, I'm not saying all of them, most of the Russians do support Putin. They only show like
how do you know that?
Well, I mean, they're not having massive protests.
They are having
massive protests. People got arrested.
Hundreds of people were arrested, Sarah. And if you're living under a dictator, you usually don't want to speak out too loud. So I'm sure there's way more people than would actually show up at the protests who are against Putin.
And what the soldier that called in said was, he said, no, all the Russians, they don't want you to know, but all the Russians are against it. And the ones that are for the war. And the ones that are against the war are only in it because of their own personal financial gain. And that was just incredibly... there's just no way you can say that about an entire country of people, that they're all for the war and hate Ukrainians. I mean, you just can't say that.
You know what? I support him. I think he's speaking more of the truth. Maybe there's small 3 to 5% that oppose the war, and they blow it up.
You just made those numbers up, Sarah.
Yeah, she's totally making things up. She doesn't know anything about what she's saying, and she's presuming that there's a bunch of communists around and that this has anything to do with communism. Now, I'm sure there are still communists in Russia and Belarus and Lithuania and Estonia, but they are in no way, shape, or form in any level of power. It's just they have nothing now. Thank goodness. Things are much more economically free in all of the former Soviet states than they ever were under Soviet communism. Thank you for the call, Sarah. There's more coming up here. The pig story on the way. It's Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can watch the show on our Odyssey channel, and you can follow us there as well. Just head over to video.freetalklive.com. That's video.freetalklive.com. And you can follow us on Odyssey, which is the best video streaming platform because it's based on a protocol that is open source, blockchain-based, decentralized. It is an uncensorable media sharing protocol. It's called LBRY. You can go to lbry.com to learn more about LBRY. As we get into the story that, Bonnie, you had last night, we didn't get a chance to get to it. It is one that I actually had in my show prep, I don't know, for the last couple weeks, but there's just so much to talk about. It was one of the ones I didn't get to either. It's about a man and his pig.
This is from the Huffington Post. It says, man battling town over whether pot-bellied pig is livestock or emotional support pet. Ellie the... Oh, what?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, the emotional support animal. I thought that's just... I thought that... I love this one. Go ahead.
Ellie, the pot-bellied pig, snuggles up to Wyvern Flat as he watches TV and sometimes rolls over to let him pet her belly, just like my dog. The 110-pound pig is family, Flat says. Oh, it weighs more than me.
A little bit larger than your dog.
It weighs more than me.
Yeah.
An emotional support animal who helped him through a divorce and the death of his mother. Officials in his upstate village of Canajoharie see it very differently, though. To them, the pig is a farm animal. Flat is harboring in the village illegally.
Population of 2,229.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that they call it a village. I've never heard of a place in America being called a village.
They actually have those in New Hampshire. Where Mark used to live was a village.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know.
It's like a part of a town. So it's like a subdivision, if you will, of town. So there's like state, county, town, and then some towns, not all, have villages.
Yeah. The case could soon be headed to a criminal trial, but it has already caught the attention of pig partisans who believe the animals should be respected more as companions instead of just a food source. Quote, I could never dream of giving away somebody who's part of my family, Flat said recently as he patted the pig in his kitchen. She's very smart. She's more intelligent than my dogs. I think she can kind of hone in on you when you're feeling bad because she'll want to come and snuggle with you.
I think it's good that they haven't actually come and kidnapped this pig at this point, because I kind of expected that he would be fighting to get his pig back, but instead they're just fighting to try to steal it from him. So I mean, it's not as bad of a situation as it could be, but it's still awful that they're trying to do this to him. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Why does anyone at all care about the fact that this dude's got a pig in his house?
In his own house, not somebody else's house, obviously.
Right. I mean, pigs are known for rooting up things, right? So if you let the pig in the yard, it's going to root. It's going to take things out of the ground. But as long as it does it on your property, who cares? Is the pig getting in the neighbor's yard?
I'm sure it has its own area of the yard. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it's not... I don't hear anything about the neighbors complaining about this, and if they are complaining about it, shame on them if the pig has never actually destroyed their property.
Says Ellie is a knee-high Vietnamese pot-bellied pig with a black coat and hooves that clack on the floor as she walks from her kitchen to food dish. Flat was living in South Carolina when he got the pig in 2018, when she was about as big as a shoe.
That is one thing that a lot of people think about pigs, is that the pot-bellied pigs are going to be small. Like they think of them like a teacup pig, like they're always going to stay small, and then they've turned into these, large beasts. Now, to be fair, 110 pounds is small on a scale of pigs, but it's still way bigger than like a small dog or something.
Teacup,
even a medium-sized dog. That's large dog territory. But anyway, go ahead.
She came north with Flat in 2019 when he moved to Canajoharie, a modest village on the Mohawk River dominated by the husk of the old beech nut food plant. Flat, 54, bought a fixer-upper near the business center of the village with plans to remodel it and maybe open a restaurant on part of the ground floor. He also has 2 cats and 2 dogs.
By the way, I looked it up. Canajoharie.
It looks hard.
It. And they may have an accent, I don't know. But anyway, go ahead.
A village code enforcer told Flat he was housing Ellie illegally, even though that's just making me so mad. In October 2019, during a visit for a building permit request.
Oh, no.
When the village noticed Ellie was still there 6 months later, Flat was formally notified he was violating the local code, barring farm animals in the village. Violation of a zoning code is a misdemeanor under state law according to court filings. I know what this man needs to do. It's what Mark Edge did when Keene tried to contact him to tell him, oh, you have a dog that's not licensed. You need to give us your $4 for your dog. He wrote them a letter back and said, I will give you your money, your ransom, when you prove to me 3 things. Prove that, Spot is a dog, a quote-unquote dog.
Mm-hmm.
2, prove that I, quote, own Spot.
Mm-hmm.
And 3, prove that it lives, quote, lives on my property. And they just ignored him.
Well, that is the ideal situation, is to have them ignore you when it comes to these things.
Oh, yeah.
And in a lot of cases, if they know you're going to fight, that's enough to get them to leave you alone, but not in this New York town. They want to go toe-to-toe with this guy and make his life a living nightmare.
Apparently they've gone pretty far. It says, violation of a zoning code is a misdemeanor under state law according to court filings.
Yeah, that's up to a year in jail.
Both sides have dug in since. Flat says the village is picking on his pig, which he says is clean and smart. Several of his neighbors have signed affidavits saying they like Ellie, the pig.
Okay.
Village Mayor Jeff Baker said the board has no comment while the court case is pending, but an attorney for the village wrote in a court filing that the pig is a potential public health hazard. She argued that if, quote, every citizen were to openly scoff at the village zoning codes, we would live in a lawless society.
Which is good.
If only people were to scoff at the zoning codes. I mean, that would be, if only 10% of the people were to scoff at the zoning codes, then that would basically end zoning.
And I'm going to piss off a lot of moms right now and dads, but whenever people act like animals are just inherently dirtier than humans, I just want to throw their kids outside and make their kids live outside, because their kids are disgusting in most cases.
A lot of humans are disgusting.
Oh, that's true, not just kids.
I mean, look, what's the public health hazard?
I'm sorry, but what is the honest difference between my dog, who I give baths to and go and get groomed, and he has, feet that walk on the ground, and your kids in their shoes, and they touch things and put it in their mouths.
Or elsewhere.
And they're allowed in restaurants, but coconut's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
kids sneezing on everything or whatever.
There's no consistency.
No, of course not. What exactly is the public health violation? Like, what could a pig do to endanger so-called public health?
Well, in your own house, he could do nothing to anybody else's house.
Right. What exactly is he going to do? Like, are you going to eat a meal off the pig's belly? What are you going to do? That's going to be a danger.
I think from legal perspective, they're worried if they don't go after him for his pig, if someone else with a tiger or with a piranha, some exotic animal. But I said, obviously it comes down to common sense and just, is this a one-time thing? I think it's totally reasonable if he has a pig in his house. And if I were the judge on the case, I would dismiss it because everybody's ignoring the zoning code. I hate to break it to you folks, but your house, I'm sure if you ripped out the drywall, there's going to be a few zoning problems that got overlooked during the inspection because they were cutting corners.
Well, a lot of stuff is grandfathered in because the code,
yeah.
Like this house we're in is 1890. There was no zoning code at that time, right? That came much later.
What did we do? What did we do before we had the government to tell us how to build our houses so they didn't burn down?
Died.
Some people did. But ultimately, the government doesn't protect you from burning alive in your house.
And the other thing that is so outrageous about this case is the fact that the government thinks they can just tell this man that he doesn't have a disability. Here, the prosecution, it says, quote, defendant provided no legitimate proof that he is a person under disability and no proof that his disability was remedied by having an emotional support animal, nor that the particular animal... How
are you supposed to prove that?
Yeah, how can you prove that? How can I prove to somebody that I love coconut? How can I prove to somebody...
Affidavit. No, seriously, that's usually what I do. Like, for example, if, say some property gets seized and you don't have the receipts to show you own it, you can sign an affidavit saying, I own it. So, and that's proof, or at least it goes in favor of showing you own it.
All right, well, yeah, I guess he could sign an affidavit saying
yeah.
It might work.
That's pretty much the story. It says here that the trial's been delayed, so we may get an update on this later on as this case develops. Luckily, like I said, he still has the pig at home, so wish
and he
him
can
the
face
best.
jail time, it says in this, so you were right.
Wow, it's insane. And of course, then what are they going to do to the pig?
They said they will take it away if he
And
loses.
then do what to it?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, everybody,
see you tomorrow night online in the meantime.
Keep living free.
freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the